Saving the Black Immortal Venerable Author, September Flowing Fire Copywriting, Mu Yungi is the Bai Yue Guang in a male master's cultivating essay. Kindness and justice died early, but she didn't know it herself. One day, a distinguished eldest lady became her junior, and Mu Yungi's life has plummeted since then. The originally kind master was picky about her in every way, but her partner was estranged from her but got close to the younger sister. In the end, Zhu Ma even gave up her in order to save the younger sister. Mu Yungi plunged into the deep sea with the falling rocks. When she closed her eyes, she saw the junior sister smile triumphantly. She also knew that junior sister was actually a girl who wears a book, and her cultivation has stagnated because she was robbed of luck by the girl who wears a book. Mu Yungi opened his eyes again and found that he was not dead, but fell into the depths of the forbidden ground. There is a piece of ice for 10,000 years in the forbidden ground, and the people inside are so clear, like a fairy. Mu Yun thought that this was the same door that strayed into the forbidden area like her, and out of good intentions, she unlocked the seal. Zhang Shai was sealed underground for 10,000 years. Suddenly one day, he was awakened by a woman. The woman was embarrassed, but she smiled and said to him, "Are you injured too? It's okay, I'll save you." She didn't know that 10,000 years ago, there was a genius in the realm of comprehension, who abandoned the immortal into the devil, deviated from the classics and rebelled, and the righteous way joined forces to suppress it. Ming Zhangshao resigned. 1. Strong and optimistic white moonlight and legendary genius who fell into the dust web 2. The end of the fairy tale, a private setting of the worldview content tag. Xian Xia Chen Sweet Wen Chuang Wen search keywords, protagonist, Mu Yungi, Zhang Shaisai supporting role, the next edition of Jinni Isha Others, one sentence introduction, I wake up the plugin after being robbed of luck by the girl who wears the book purpose, when you are in the abyss, you also have to focus on justice VIP strong push metal Mu Yun was conspired to save an icebound young man because he was the white moonlight of the male lead. Unexpectedly, this young man was the famous immortal legend Zhang Shaisai thousands of years ago, because the traitor was sealed in the forbidden area. Mu Yungi and Zhang Shai were adventurous while tracking the truth 10,000 years ago, and finally learned that Zhang Shai's so-called traitor had another secret, and the advent of the age of domination also hides a huge secret. Together, they defeated the conspiracy, restored justice in the world, and allowed both immortals and demons to coexist. This article takes a unique approach and tells a world of fairy tales in the Doomsday era. The heroine is optimistic and brave, the hero is amazing and talented, and the feelings and stories of the hero and the hero are intertwined and integrated. Several units are connected in series to show the Tao and love in the Doomsday. Kiwan 4020 years, Tianzhu Island. The waves slapped against the steep rock wall with a continuous sound. The sea is blue, the sun is shining on the water, and the dazzling people's eyes are dizzy. However, what happened on the shore was completely different from this peaceful seascape. Mu Yungi held the sword against the attack of the iron tortoise, and all the attacks of the second-level monster beast fell on Mu Yungi. She groaned at the time. A blood surged in his chest. This is Tianzhu Island, surrounded by the sea and isolated from the world. Mu Yungi was born here and has never seen anyone outside the island since he grew up. The environment of Tianzhu Island is harsh, and fierce sea beasts will attack the island at any time. Children on the island must learn how to avoid warcraft from birth. And Mu Yungi's mother accidentally lived on Tianzhu Island when she was pregnant. They were not from the four major families of Tianzhu Island. Coupled with the fact that her mother was in poor health, Mu Yungi learned to be a family early on. When his mother died at the age of 15, Mu Yungi wanted to stand alone. Today, Zima Nangongxuan and his junior sister Dongfang Li insisted to come to pray for the immortal island to poach the iron turtle. Mu Yungi did not agree to take the risk, but the junior sister Dongfang Li repeatedly emphasized that the iron turtle was in the spawning period and lost its attack power. They stole there is no danger at all if you run away after the monster egg. Mu Yungi had no choice but to be pulled over, but during the retreat, the little junior sister alarmed the iron tortoise, and the situation suddenly changed to what it is now. Mu Yungi swallowed the blood foam in his mouth, and shouted to his silly companion who was frightened at his feet, "Don't leave soon." The companion then came back to his senses, ran to the edge of the cliff with his hands and feet, and climbed up forcefully. The people on the cliff hurriedly pulled their companions up. Dongfang Li watched Mu Yun return and retreated, and stepped closer to the cane. She suddenly frowned and said anxiously, "No, the priest sister is in danger." Then, without waiting for everyone's reaction, Dongfang Li jumped off the cliff and went to the rock to help Mu Yun return to fight the iron turtle. Mu Yungi was about to get away, but Dongfang Li suddenly ran down. The iron-striped tortoise was enraged, and the attack became more and more violent. The rock under his feet began to tremble and was about to collapse soon. Even if Mu Yungi had a good temper, he wanted to scold Dongfang Li for making a mess. At this moment, Dongfang Li was still beside him panicking and shouting, "What should I do, Pastor Sister? I can't hold it anymore." Mu Yun said that you are a first-level star vein, and asked her what a zero-level star does. But after all, the other party was in danger to save himself. Mu Yungi said, "It's okay, the iron turtle can't climb the cliff, we just have to walk to the cane." Although the iron tortoise is a second-level monster, its attack power is not strong, and even Mu Yungi can carry it alone for a while. It is reasonable that Dongfang Li, a lady with excellent magic weapons and complete protective gear, will not be defeated. But Dongfang Li couldn't leave, and Mu Yun had to stay on the front line in order to wait for her. Dongfang Li placed a spell in the wrong direction and hit the ground directly. Under the shaky rock wall, a group of poisonous crocodiles were wagging their tails, staring at the food above. Nangongsuan looked at it from a high place, suddenly sinking his face, and sternly said, "Here is going to collapse, you go quickly, I will save them." After speaking, Nangongsuan held the cane and swooped down from a height. Dongfang Li made frequent mistakes. Mu Yun held all the attacks of the iron tortoise by himself, and shouted to Dongfang Li, "Go, you go up the cliff first." Dongfang Li turned around and ran, but when she ran out of the attack range of the iron tortoise, she suddenly fell to the ground, looking like she had twisted her ankle. Nangongsuan flew down from the cliff, hesitated between Dongfang Li and Mu Yungi, but changed the direction and chose to save Dongfang Li first. He and Mu Yungi had cooperated many times, and the two had also killed beasts when they went out to sea before, and Mu Yungi had no problem staying alone for a while. But Dongfang Li is the eldest lady who has 10 fingers that don't touch the Yang Chun Shui, and now she has hurt her foot, so she can't figure out how painful it is. Mu Yungi did not expect that at the moment of life and death, Nangongxian would have chosen Dongfang Li, which was farther away. 2 days before Mu Yun returned, he failed to attack and become a star, and now he has supported several waves of iron tortoise's attacks, and his body is already at the end of his force. Nangongsuan held the vine in one hand and Dongfang Li in the other, and the two of them drifted away like a couple of gods and goddesses. Mu Yungi stayed alone on the stone cliff, and there was a sudden shock at his feet, and the cliff collapsed. Mu Yungi joined the falling rocks and fell into the billowing waves together. In the front is the distant companion, and below is the third-level monster-toothed crocodile, known as the Killer in the Sea, in groups. Hai Feng passed by Mu Yungi, curling up her long hair. Mu Yungi's eyes were a little bit painful from the shaved hair. She opened her eyes laboriously and found that Nangongxian was holding Dongfang Li hanging on the cliff, shouting in her direction. Dongfang Li leaned against Nangongxian, covering his face as if crying, but Mu Yungi clearly saw the corners of Dongfang Li's mouth quietly convulsed. It turns out she did it on purpose. Mu Yungi said that a young lady from the Dongfang family who has enjoyed the best resources of Tianzhu Island since she was a child and can get through the star vein of Tianzhu within a month of entering the school, how can she not even be able to beat a mere second-level beast? It turned out that Dongfang Li deliberately wanted Mu Yun to die. During the fall, all senses slowed down. Mu Yunyi seemed to be able to feel the sea breeze flowing from her fingertips and the waves slapped on the rocks. Mu Yunyi even heard a ding-dong from Dongfang Li's body. Congratulations to the host, for completing the White Moonlight killing the male lead mission. The hero? Bai Yue Guang? Mu Yunyi fell into the sea with a plop, and the water splashed heavily on her back. But Mu Yunyi didn't have time to cry out. She raised her hand laboriously, and confronted the surrounding poisonous crocodile. However, outnumbered, red flocks floated on the sea water soon. Mu Yun looked at the undercurrent next to him, gritted his teeth and rushed into the whirlpool. The sea area around Tianzhu Island is complicated, and any undercurrent may kill people. No one knows where the vortex will lead them. But Mu Yun had no choice but to take a gamble. As soon as Mu Yunyi approached the vortex, she was caught by a strong suction force. Her body kept hitting things, losing blood, severely injured, and hitting, and Mu Yunyi quickly lost her way. Dizzy, Mu Yunyi seemed to have a dream. The protagonist of the dream is her acquaintance, Zuma Nangongsuan, who grew up with her since childhood. There are some things in the dream that Mu Yunyi knows, such as Nangongsuan's childhood misfortune, which is a waste of wood, but some things are not known to Mu Yunyi, such as Nangongsuan actually pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. The male protagonist in the Tianji escalation flow cultivation essay, counterattacked all the way and hit the face, with endless opportunities and magic weapons. Later, he became the first person in the mainland to open up the 7 stars, alone in the world, and invincible. He founded his own empire and let all the people and monks in the world submit to him. From then on, he stepped on the pride of the sky, sat on 3,000 beauties, and lived a life of lying on the knees of a drunk beauty and waking up to the power of the world. And Mu Yunyi is the white moonlight that the male protagonist Nangongxian couldn't ask for. The reason why he couldn't ask for it was because Mu Yunyi died early. When Nangongsuan was regarded as useless and bullied by the Nangong family, only a young girl helped him. Later, Nangongsuan was retired by Dongfang Li and was severely humiliated by Dongfang Li's suitors. Yun Gui fights the injustice for him, and teaches those doglegs with a sword. After the godsend opened, they finally left Tianzhu Island and headed to the distant Immortal World continent, where they joined a new sect. Nangongxian opened a more dazzling long Aotian life in the New World, and Mu Yunyi was also in a secret realm, and died to save Nangongxian. He is really a tool man from start to finish, and he sends warmth thoroughly. Later, even if Nangongxian's wives and concubines were in groups, he could never forget the green plum when he was a teenager. Mu Yunyi became the hopeless white moonlight in Nangongxian's heart, and became the common enemy of the male protagonist's harem regiment. Mu Yun returned in his dream like a throat, and didn't think it was a good thing to be remembered at all. However, there is still more to come. Nangongsuan, as the main male protagonist, has not only a group of ignorant family members, but also an arrogant fiancé. This fiancé was Dongfang Li, who appeared on the stage with insulting the male protagonist, forcibly retiring from the marriage, and retiring with disfigurement and severed arms, with no bones left, and died worse than Mu Yun's return. Originally, this was just a story about how to bully the young and poor. Who would have thought that this fiancé would wear a book? When Chuan Shun arrived, just in time for the day of her divorce, after reading the plot, Chuan Shunian immediately performed at the divorce scene and became alive. Not only did she exaggerate Nangongxian's meal, she also tore up her divorce letter in public and let go of Hao. It is said that regardless of life or death, she Dongfang Li is Nangongsuan's wife. Look at these words, it is a high rank, not only bound to a woman who is a strong one, but also a true wife. After that, Dongfang Li changed his previous meanness and domineering, changed himself to a Tsunderam Mrs. character, ran to Nangongxian all day, asked Nangongxian for warmth, sent resources and equipment, and joined the Outer Sect Academy for him. The younger sister of Nangongxian and Mu Yunyi. The dream gradually dissipated here, but Mu Yunyi had already understood it. She just said, why Dongfang Li suddenly seemed to have changed people. It turned out that the shell was really taken away. Since retiring in the first month, Mu Yongyi has felt that Dongfang Li is very strange, but people around him think that Miss Dongfang is arrogant and cute, not as brainless as the rumors. The teacher was full of praise for Dongfang Li, and the partners who had lived and died together competed with Dongfang Li. Even Nangang Xian's eyes looked at Dongfang Li with more and more interest. The people around Mu Yongyi seemed to have been taken away by Dongfang Li, and she watched as she was being pushed out of her original social circle a little bit. Mu Yongyi didn't understand why Dongfang Li was so hostile to her. All the resources on Tianzhu Island were monopolized by the four major families. Dongfang Li was the only daughter of the Dongfang family and the next quasi-patriarch, but Mu Yongyi did. It was just an outsider who accidentally lived on Tianzhu Island. He has depended on his mother for many years. At the age of 15, his mother also passed away, leaving only Muyun in the family. Even Nangongxuan, when Dongfang Li said that I am the person of brother Xian, whether it is life or death, Mu Yongyi consciously kept a distance from Nangongxuan, and did not go to sea in a team. Had Nangongxuan listened to Dongfang Li's instigation this time, and had to come to pray for the iron tortoise on the island, Mu Yongyi would not have gone out with Nangongxuan. Who would have thought that even if Dongfang Li was not at ease, he must kill Mu Yongyi? Mu Yongyi felt as if she had hit something, and she tried her best to climb up. Mu Yongyi opened his eyes strenuously in the darkness. He couldn't see clearly all around, but could only hear dripping from above. This seems to be a cave. Mu Yongyi was bloodied, scarred, and poisoned by the poisonous crocodile. She felt the blood flow from the wound, her body temperature was getting lower and lower, and soon she was going to die. Before he lost consciousness, Mu Yun thought in his heart, why bother? Her feelings for Nangongxian were not between men and women, let alone Nangongxian's subsequent acceptance of so many women. It was impossible for Mu Yun to return to him. If in the original book, Mu Yun saw that Nangongxian saw one by one while he was alive, she would definitely part ways with him early. It's just that the bullying of Mu Yun died early. Unexpectedly, she died prematurely in the original plot, and again, she still can't escape. Mu Yongyi slept for a long time. After waking up, she was in a daze in the darkness before realizing that she was not dead. Every bone in his body was hurting. Mu Yongyi struggled to get up, and the wound cracked once again. The blood seeped into the water along the cracks in the stone and floated out of the cave. There were several poisonous crocodiles around the entrance of the cave. They smelled the breath of blood and kept rolling and roaring, but none of them dared to come in. Such a simple action almost consumed all of Mu Yongyi's strength. Mu Yongyi supported the stone wall to breathe. She noticed that the poisonous crocodile was wandering back and forth outside. She couldn't help but raise her head and carefully looked at the cave. Where is this? Why don't they dare to come in? The low-level monsters have no conscious mind and act entirely by instinct. They smelled the smell of blood but did not dare to step forward, which can only prove that there is something more dangerous in this cave. Until now, Mu Yongyi was very eager to think about it. She was like this, no matter what was in the cave, she could do nothing, so it's better to calm down and adjust her breath. If you bump into a more advanced monster, that's her fate. Mu Yun had no energy to pick a place, so he found a flat stone nearby and meditated cross-legged. Her spiritual power ran in the body for a whole week, and finally she felt the wound on her body solidify and no longer continue to lose blood. She has no replenishing pill, so she can only regain her energy by meditation. She didn't know how long she had been sitting, and barely replenished her spiritual power to half. The remaining half can't be made up. I don't know what's weird in this cave. The spiritual energy is extremely scarce. If you accumulate a little spiritual energy, it will be sucked away by an invisible force. Mu Yongyi tried for a long time, but there was really no way to get that weird gravitational pull. She knew that it would be useless to consume it anymore, and when she recovered her self-preservation, she stood up and walked in tentatively. The poisonous crocodile stared at him outside, and Mu Yunyi could only walk inward, although the inside might be more dangerous. The topography in the cave was very strange. If it weren't for the dripping water from above, Mu Yunyi almost suspected that it was the ground, but was forcibly sunk into the ground. The more you go in, the more obvious the gravitational pull that attracts people. Mu Yunyi made a risky decision. Following this attraction, she wanted to see what was absorbing spiritual power. Mu Yun had been away for a long time, and suddenly found that there was no dripping around, and the walls had turned into frosty ridges, and a layer of ice had formed behind and even the entire ground. Mu Yunyi endured the cold and walked to the innermost with difficulty. As soon as she entered it, she was taken aback by the sight inside. In front of it is a wide hall, the walls are polished and smooth, the ground is thick with frost, and formation patterns are faintly visible under the ice layer. In the center of the hall, there is a huge piece of ice. Mu Yunyi's eyes were calm, pressing one hand on the sword, and slowly approaching the ice bed. This piece of ice is half a person tall, and every step he takes, he can feel a strong murderous aura, as if he is resisting the approach of others. Mu Yun was only halfway away, and it was really impossible to get close, but this distance was enough for her to see what was going on inside. There turned out to be a person in the huge ice cube. Far away, he couldn't see his face clearly. It was vaguely visible that his side face was extremely clear, enclosed in the ice, and he really had a sense of holiness like iceberg snow lotus. How come there are people here? Mu Yunyi was instinctively vigilant, and tentatively shouted, "Who are you?" Mu Yunyi's voice echoed in the stone cave without any response. Mu Yunyi observed the traces of water erosion on the ground, but did not see the sword marks. Thinking about it, he was frozen without resistance at all. Otherwise, there will be no traces of fighting on the ground. Mu Yunyi let go of his heart, and if there is no struggle, it is unlikely to be a monster. Tianzhu Island has never been visited by outsiders in recent years, and it is unlikely that it is a cultivator seeking revenge. Taking a step back, even if it is really revenge from the enemy, their grievances have nothing to do with Mu Yunyi. Now that monsters are raging, mortals and monks are living very hard. Human beings are a community and should watch each other. Anyone who sees an injured monk is obliged to help. After all, one more person will have more strength, otherwise it will not be long before there will be no more humans in this world. Mu Yunyi wanted to help her fellow sect, but the seal was very weird. Mu Yunyi tried all the methods she knew, but couldn't unlock it. When she put her fingers on her neck and touched the necklace under her clothes, she hesitated for a moment. This was the last thing left to her by her mother, and if it were used here, she would no longer have her mother's relics. But when Mu Yun turned to think about it, the relics are after all dead, and talents are living beings. If his mother knew what she did, she would agree with her. Mu Yunyi made up his mind, took out the key left by his mother, muttered the formula silently, then bit a drop of blood on the tip of his tongue and dripped it onto the key. The key engraved with silver frost began to glow, and finally turned into a white light, submerged in the ice. After a while, the invisible suppression in the cave disappeared. Mu Yun Gishang breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately stepped forward, digging into the ice with his sword. She had exhausted too much physical strength, and she was both poisoned and injured, and she was out of breath after only a few gouges. She eased the dizziness in her brain, and when her eyes could see, she held the sword again. But this time, when she lowered her head, she caught her eyes off guard. The people in the ice did not know when they opened their eyes, and the two looked at each other silently through the ice. Mu Yunyi felt that this person looked good just now. Now that he opened his eyes, Mu Yunyi realized that his imagination was still too barren. This man was about the same age as Nangang Xian, but he didn't have the aggressiveness of Nangang Xian. He is tall, his figure is between a boy and a man, his shoulders are as wide and straight as an adult man, but his back is as thin as a boy. He has very white skin, unstoppable white across the ice layer, long hair like ink, sword eyebrows, star eyes, narrow nose and long British nose, but red lips with sharp edges and corners. However, the most outstanding thing on his face is his eyes. His eyelashes are slender, his eyes are graceful and sharp, and the tails of his eyes are raised high, looking flying and seductive. He was pure and harmless when he closed his eyes, but when those eyes were opened, they were instantly bright and murderous. Mu Yunyi was startled, took a step back and almost fell. Mu Yunyi was stunned for a while, and took the lead to smile at the person in the ice. Are you also injured? It's okay, I'll save you out. Mu Yunyi was secretly obsessed with his heart. It was obvious that this person's appearance looked like ice and jade bones, and he was awe-inspiring. Why did his eyes have fierce madness? What she saved was indeed a cultivator, right? When Mu Yun hesitated, the people in the ice were also looking at her. Zhang Shaokai never thought that he could wake up. The last picture in the memory is the blood-flowing demon tubing formation, and the Kunlun sect whose spirit is surging. The genius who swept the mainland became a taboo demon overnight, and many people came to Kunlun Zone to watch the execution. He hung his hands upside down on the demon slaughter platform, and the thin iron chain of his wrist pierced his shoulder blades, and blood dripped with a slight movement. The master of Shensu in white stood in front of the demon slayer array and asked, Zhang Ziyu, do you know what's wrong? Wrong? What is wrong with him? Zhang Shaokai's attitude angered the Immortal Gate. He was once a genius once seen in the past, but now he has become a malignant tumor that threatens the immortal world. He was drawn into the star veins alive, digging out the sword bones. His master personally practiced the soul-searching technique, and abolished his sea of knowledge. Every item was torture in the realm of cultivation, but Zhang Shaokai remained silent. In the end, he was sealed by the 10 major sects. He had thought that those people would kill him while he was asleep. Instead of being like this, standing in front of a weak girl who can't feel aura, in a very stupid way, telling him to save him. Zhang Shaokai bypassed Mu Yun and returned, looking around. Come to think of it, this is the place where those people sealed him. What trapped him was nether frost, and there was an outstanding spirit formation on the ground. They were so jealous of him, for fear that a little aura would enter his body. It's a pity now that the seal has been released. They didn't kill him, it was their life's curse. Zhang Shaosai moved his finger, and Mu Yunyi couldn't shovel the ice layer with all his strength and instantly shattered into fine pieces. Zhang Shaokai was finally able to move freely. He stood up and looked down at his hand, his eyes dark and unpredictable. Before entering the Demon Slayer array, he opened up the 6 star veins at the age of 19, and became the master of the world with the highest cultivation base and the fastest cultivation on the mainland. He can move mountains and seas with a single wave, but now, he is so weak. Mu Yun thought he was physically weak and tried to help him, be careful. But when Mu Yunyi's hand was about to touch his arm, he avoided him. Zhang Shaokai looked at Mu Yun's return coldly, his eyes were dark and deep, and the undercurrent surged, who are you? That kind of eyes were not bottoming, as if Mu Yunyi's words were wrong, he would kill Mu Yunyi. Mu Yunyi was captured, and she reacted after a while and said, I am Mu Yunyi. I accidentally fell into the sea while hunting the sea beast and was swept into this place by the undercurrent. What about you, what have you encountered and why? Enclosed by ice. Zhang Shaokai ignored the final question of Mu Yun's return. The surnames of Mu, Mu and Mu flashed across his mind. Mu and Mu are all surnames, and there is no large-scale immortal family. As for the Mu family, they do exist, but they are far in the north, and they are unlikely to appear by the sea. The most important thing is that the Mu family has enemies with him. Zhang Shaokai vaguely felt that the seal disappeared after the girl came in. If she is Mu's family, she should not be generous enough to unlock the seal for him. Zhang Shaokai has no prestige as Mu Yunyi, a girl with black hair and snowy skin, Kyung nose and red lips, and her skeleton is born slender and slender. Sophistication. Zhang Shaokai temporarily dispelled the idea of killing her. No matter what she had planned, she couldn't get rid of the seal. Besides, she is so weak, it makes no difference whether she kills or not. The boy raised his eyes and scanned the surroundings, judging the terrain based on the information in Mu Yongyi's words. His thin lips moved slightly, and asked, "Is this in the South China Sea or the West China Sea?" He thought this was a simple question, but Mu Yongyi shook his head and said, "I don't know. We only know the inner sea, the outer sea, and where is Tianju Island. The master never taught it, nor did the elders say it. Maybe they don't know." Tianju Island? The boy frowned his pretty eyebrows, and after a while, he asked, "What time is it now?" "Kiwan 4020 years. Zhang Shaokai was slightly startled, and then asked, "What was the previous era?" This Mu Yongyi knows. Although they were born in Kiwan, they have to face thin aura, scarce resources and harsh environment from birth, but it does not prevent them from yearning for the once prosperous world of immortality. Mu Yongyi's eyes were filled with light, and he said, "It's the era of awakening." Just like his guess, Zhang Sha resigned in a daze. After a moment, he smiled softly, "It's been so long." When he was sealed, it was in the spring of 44 years when he woke up. He went to the extreme north to get the holy flower of Mu's frost jade for the master to attack the realm. But after returning, he was greeted by the same sword. It turned out that 10,000 years have passed. His laughter was short and cold, not like joy, more like irony. Mu Yongyi looked at him carefully, and tentatively asked, "Who are you?" Mu Yongyi wanted to ask for a long time. But this young man didn't seem to have a good temper. Just now he had been holding her to ask questions, and Mu Yongyi was too embarrassed to interrupt. Now that she found the opportunity, she finally asked, "Me?" The young man's eyebrows were clear, his dark eyes were burning with madness and hatred that were incompatible with the world. "Sell me Zhang Shao." "Zhang Shaosai." Mu Yun said the name silently in his heart, and asked, "Are you not from Tianju Island?" Zhang Shaokai turned his head, and Ruiaoru's killing intent appeared in his eyes again. "What's the matter?" Shaokai is the secular name he used when he did not join the Kunlun sect. After he entered the Immortal Gate, he invited people to give him a name. During his years in the world of cultivating immortals, no one in the world knew about Zhang Ziyu, but few people knew the name Shaosai. Even his master, friends, and fiancé hadn't even noticed, so Zhang Shaokai dared to give his name. Unexpectedly, this mortal girl showed a thoughtful look. Zhang Shaokai was murderous again. She had such a big reaction to his name. Could it be that she knew him? Zhang Shaokai slowly bends his fingers, ready to do it at any time. 10,000 years is long, but it is not too long for his opponents. Most of those people are still alive, and they are at the pinnacle of power and strength. Zhang Shaosai has completely ruined his cultivation. Now it is definitely not a good thing for him to face his old friends. He can't let anyone divulge the news of his waking up. Zhang Shaokai was about to take action, but unexpectedly, the girl's eyes suddenly lit up in front of her. She bent her eyes and smiled and said to him, "Great, I am the only one with a foreign surname on the island these years. What do you do? I'm all alone, and now I finally have you. How did you find Tianju Island? What is it like outside? I haven't seen the world outside the island." Mu Yongyi noticed Zhang Shaokai's hand and asked curiously, "What's wrong with your hand? Are you going to take something?" Zhang Shaosai loosened his fingers, squeezed the delicate and beautiful joints lightly, and said, "It's okay. This ghost place is not safe. Go out first." Mu Yun should go back, she thought so too. Mu Yongyi turned and walked outside. Zhang Shaokai got up from the ice block, only took 2 steps, and suddenly fell down. Mu Yongyi was taken aback, and quickly turned around to help him. "What's wrong with you?" Zhang Shaosai supported the ice layer with one hand, and swiped the other hand across his lips. wiping the blood from the corners of his mouth vigorously. He had a bad tone and said coldly, "Nothing. Lead the way ahead." Mu Yunyi looked at Zhang Shaokai's pale face and hands, and he didn't seem to be okay. But Zhang Shaokai had a strong self-esteem, and he refused to let Mu Yun return to his support anyway. Mu Yun had no choice but to stand up, slow down his progress, and said, "There are poisonous tooth crocodile outside, and there may be other beasts in the cave. Be careful." When Zhang Shaokai woke up for a while, he had heard many words he didn't understand. Tianzhu Island, toothed crocodile, warcraft, all unheard of. Zhang Shaokai didn't show it. He slept for 10,000 years and didn't know anything about the outside world. The world of immortality today seems to be different from before, and it's best not to act rashly until you understand the environment. Zhang Shaokai silently glanced at the figure in front of him. The girl knew nothing but was still leading the way seriously. For the sake of her usefulness, let her stay for a few more days. Mu Yunyi had originally guarded against other high-level monsters in the cave, but fortunately, there was nothing else except a strange formation and Zhang Shaokai lying in the ice. Seeing that the entrance of the cave is in front of him, Mu Yunyi clenched the sword tightly and quietly reminded Zhang Shaokai, "There is a poisonous crocodile in front. Be careful." Before the words fell, a black shadow suddenly sprang out from the calm water, and a big mouth that smelled like a fish to the sky rushed towards Mu Yun's return. There are 3 layers of rugged and dense fangs growing in the monster's mouth, and flesh and blood can be seen between the teeth. Mu Yunyi held the poisonous crocodile with his sword, and shouted to the people behind him, "I'll stop it, you go quickly." Zhang Shaokai silently watched the girl's movements. He had already noticed fluctuations under the water. He thought Mu Yunyi knew it, but she didn't know it. After Zhang Shao's resignation, he realized with hindsight that she was not a monk, but a mortal who had not yet opened up the star veins. Mortals can't hear underwater movement, and they can barely understand it. Mu Yunyi confronted the poisonous crocodile. She drew her sword violently, and the poisonous crocodile rushed behind because of inertia. Taking advantage of this momentary gap, she turned her head and said to Zhang Shaokai, "Go on the road on the right, be careful about the corners of the road, don't get close to the water, go quickly." Seeing Zhang Shaokai motionless when Mu Yun returned, he thought Zhang Shaokai was scared and stupid. In fact, Zhang Shaokai also felt that Mu Yunyi was a fool. Since Zhang Shaokai practiced Taoism, he has never stood behind others, whether he is trying or hunting. But now he was guarded by a woman, who repeatedly stopped the ugly and poor crocodile and urged him to leave. This feeling, Zhang Shaokai can't describe it, but can only say it is very novel. Zhang Shaokai couldn't bear it, and said to his tool man, "Use the fire dragon technique." Although she hasn't gotten through the star veins, she has entered the door, and she should have aura in her body. This kind of low-level and ugly aquatic monster, a fire dragon technique saves time and effort, and can be burned very quickly without even having to deal with the bones. Mu Yunyi was stunned when he heard that, and was almost hit by the poisonous crocodile. She rolled away and looked at Zhang Shaokai in surprise. "What did you say?" Fire spells can only be released after the first star vein is opened, but they must actually have an attack effect, not to mention reaching the second star vein or even higher. As for the fire dragon technique, it was a large-scale spell that could only be released before the aura was exhausted, and it has been cut off for 6,000 years. Did Zhang Shaokai freeze his brain in the ice? What is he talking about? Zhang Shaokai also felt unreasonable. Seeing that ugly thing rushed over again, he was so angry that he scolded, "Stop talking, look ahead." The venomous crocodile's leather armor is hard, cunning and difficult, and they have 5 legs, and they can roam freely on land and water. Mu Yun belonged to an unborn mortal, and it was too difficult to fight the poisonous crocodile solely by strength. Mu Yunyi entangled with the poisonous crocodile and accidentally tripped over its tail. Mu Yungyi's palm broke the skin on the ground, and the smell of blood attracted more beasts. Mu Yun's return was not good, and just about to get up, the poisonous crocodile had already rushed towards her with his mouth wide open. The stench came over his face. Mu Yungyi raised his sword, planning to give up his arm and fight hard. When the poisonous crocodile was about to bite her, Mu Yungyi's other arm was suddenly held by someone, and then a burst of power came. Mu Yungyi was violently pulled back, and he staggered a few times before he could stand firm. Zhang Shaokai couldn't bear it. He pulled up the idiot, raised his leg, and slammed into the blood basin of the poisonous crocodile with one foot. Mu Yungyi's eyes widened, and he hurriedly said, "Quick!" She wanted to remind him to stop as soon as possible. The teeth of the poisonous crocodile were hard and poisonous, and even the Twostar monk would be crushed instantly. However, she only opened her head and saw the poisonous crocodile was kicked and broke its tooth, snapped to the back, and crashed several stones. "Take your legs." Mu Yun opened his eyes dumbly, unable to understand what she saw. Zhang Shaosai clearly has no spiritual power fluctuations in his body. He was either seriously injured and completely ruined, or he was a mortal who hadn't practiced. However, no matter what the situation, he shouldn't be called a killer in the sea and let countless monks. The frightened poison-toothed crocodile kicked. When Zhang Shaosai kicked sideways, his legs were raised high and straight, his waist and abdomen were stable, and his breath was long, showing that his core strength was very stable. Moreover, the speed and accuracy of his legs are quite good, which is definitely not something that can be achieved by casual practice. Mu Yun bit her lip and wondered again, who did she save? Zhang Shaokai retracted his slender leg, his sword bone was dug out, and his meridians were drawn. Such a movement was still too intense for him. There was blood surging in Zhang Shaosai's chest, and the position where he entered the star vein was severely painful. But Zhang Shaokai didn't show anything, his expression was still arrogant and indifferent. He glanced lightly at Mu Yungyi who was standing stupidly, and said sarcastically, "Who is your master? I don't want to urge you to make a star, and I don't even teach you the basic skills." Mu Yungyi's lips moved, quite unjustly, "Why, I practice for 6 hours every day, and I have never neglected the star formation." Zhang Shaokai raised his eyebrows unexpectedly, then sneered, "That's even more terrifying." Seeing her bone age is 18 or 18 years old, she practiced for 6 hours a day, and she didn't even get through the simplest star vein. Zhang Shaokai had not yet passed his 20-year-old birthday when he was sealed. At her age, he had cultivated the 5-star Yuhang Meridian, and he was number 1 in Kendo in the world. This is the future of the immortal world today? Mu Yungyi was so angry with Zhang Shaokai's eyes. Although she hadn't gotten through the star veins, her cultivation had always been one of the best in the same school. Why did she get to Zhang Shaosai's place, like a rubbish? Mu Yungyi retorted indignantly, "Although I failed to conquer the star knot, I have reached the threshold of Tianxia star and opened up a star vein. Among the young people under 30 years old on the island, except for senior brother Nangongxuan and Dongfang's sister Li, I belong to the highest cultivation base." Zhang Shaokai nodded and said, "I understand. It seems that the world of immortality is indeed over." Mu Yungui's Hung was about to say something, suddenly he caught a glimpse of the sparkling water on the other side of the wall, and a shadow was moving faintly. "The shadow is moving?" Mu Yungyi reacted abruptly and pushed Zhang Shaokai away, "Be careful." A poisonous toothed crocodile suddenly rushed from the rock wall, facing Zhang Shaosai's back. After Mu Yungyi pushed Zhang Shaokai away, she became herself exposed under the fangs of the poisonous crocodile. Mu Yungyi's pupils were instinctively enlarged, and Mu Yungyi couldn't avoid it at such a close distance. She could even see that there was no chewed meat between the teeth of the poisonous crocodile. At this time, an arm was crossed before Mu Yun returned, stopping the poisonous crocodile. The poisonous crocodile felt its prey thrown into the net, and immediately bit down. Zhang Shaokai now does not have a spiritual energy body, and the strength of his flesh and blood is not much stronger than that of a mortal. His arm immediately splashed with blood, spraying Mu Yun's face. Mu Yungi's eyes widened, there were blood drops on his eyelashes, and he completely lost his response. However, the expected cracking sound did not come. The teeth of the poisonous crocodile pierced Zhang Shaoxai's skin, but he couldn't bite his bones. Zhang Shaokai used his bitten arm as a support, and his other hand grabbed the lower jaw of the crocodile, and forcibly tore its mouth open. The teeth of the poisonous crocodile were still pierced on Zhang Shaoxai's arm and howled in pain, but Zhang Shaoxai did not stop, and even tore the poisonous crocodile in half in this position. The scream of the poisonous crocodile echoed in the stone cave, and a lot of blood was dripping on the ground, and it was very sticky when stepped on it. I don't know if it was Zhang Shaoxai or the poisonous crocodile. Mu Yungi watched such a cruel scene up close, wondering whether he should feel bad for the torn poisonous crocodile or Zhang Shaokai's arm. The poisonous crocodile had completely died. Zhang Shaoxai threw the minced meat to the ground, slowly moving his fingers. The blood stains ran across his face, slid along the angular jawline to the tip of the chin, shook, and dripped suddenly. He was covered in blood, but he still didn't care. His eyes were fierce, with unparalleled ruthlessness. The smell of blood in the stone cave rushed to the sky, and such a heavy smell of blood attracted many poison-toothed crocodiles. They were swimming in the water, but none of them dared to climb up. Mu Yungi sighed, cut a piece of cloth on his clean petticoat, and held Zhang Shaoxai's hand. Zhang Shaokai's body was suddenly tense, and slender muscle lines appeared on his arms. Mu Yungi gently pressed his wound and wrapped it with a white cloth, while saying, "The teeth of the poisonous crocodile are poisonous, so don't touch it with your hands next time. There are no conditions here. You deal with the injury." Mu Yungi's eyes drooped slightly, and the fine blood beads on her eyelashes fell, touching her face. Mu Yungi's skin is white, his apricot eyes are black and shiny, but now his palm-sized cheeks are covered with dust and blood. The dirt does not compromise the color of the beauty, but adds a touch of fragility, which makes people faintly give birth to a cruel impulse. Zhang Shaokai stared at her profile, his arm slowly relaxed. Mu Yungi pressed the hole in his arm, and it didn't take long for him to be covered in blood. She couldn't help sighing, "You have been bitten so deep, how much devil there is in the wound." Fortunately, it is the first year of Qi Yuan. If you were injured so badly in the early days of the punishment, you will definitely be killed by your companions. The speaker of Mu Yun's return was unintentional, but Zhang Shaokai secretly squinted his eyes. He tilted his head, stared at her for a while unclearly, and asked, "Why?" Mu Yungi found that Zhang Shaokai was a very strange person. He was surprised at every word, but he didn't know much about common sense. Perceiving Mu Yungi's eyes, Zhang Shaokai didn't blink his eyes and said, "I just woke up, and I can't remember many things." Mu Yungi suddenly realized that when she remembered that the fish would be sluggish for a while when they were taken out of the freezer, Zhang Shaoxai had just melted out of the ice, and perhaps his brain was not very bright. Judging by his appearance and temperament, this is mostly a young man carefully protected by a big family. If Zhang Shaoxai had lost part of his memory, then his behavior when he first woke up could be explained. Mu Yungi consciously found the answer, and patiently explained to him, "There is magic energy in the body of the beast. Once bitten by them, the monk's wound will be entangled with the magic energy. If it cannot be dealt with in time, the magic energy will destroy all the spiritual energy in the monk's body. After being transformed into a demon, the demonized cultivator will attack his companions and kill innocent people indiscriminately." In the early days of the punishment, in order to avoid the annihilation of the entire army, the survivors directly killed the wounded cultivators. Fortunately, it was found to be cleaned up. The method of devil energy, as long as the devil energy does not penetrate into the heart, it can be saved, and the tragedy of similar killings will stop. Thoughtful Zhang Shaikai finally asked the question he had been wondering since waking up, what is the devilish energy? Mu Yun got stuck for a while, and didn't know what to say. Magic energy, it's magic energy. 6,000 years ago, for some reason, the spiritual energy began to dry up. A strange black energy emerged from all directions, and the animals and plants were in the dark energy. After a long period of time, it will produce abnormal changes and become murderous. Once a monk introduces this kind of breath into his body, he will also become an unrestrained murderous monster. The world of immortality calls this black energy devil energy, and the devil energy rises. The year when the spiritual energy dries up is called the punishment of heaven. Zhang Shaisai calculated the time silently. 6,000 years ago, that was 8,000 years of awakening. At that time, he had been sealed for 4,000 years. Zhang Shaikai thought for a while, and asked, why is there a natural punishment? Mu Yun cut off a new piece of cloth to cover the blood hole in his upper arm. I don't know, the cause of this catastrophe so far is a mystery. It may be that the human race has done something to offend the heavens, so the heavens will punish them. Zhang Shaikai somewhat understands why this generation of young people is especially bad. Zhang Shaikai asked, if the world is filled with devilish energy, how do you practice? It depends on the enchantment. Mu Yun returned to his hands and motioning outside with his eyes, and said, Tianzhu Island is surrounded by enchantments, and the aura can be confined in the island, but the area is limited. The inner sea is not bad. Peaceful, there are no barriers in the open sea, and demons are everywhere. The beasts are becoming more and more fierce and brutal. High-level and fourth-level beasts can be seen everywhere. Except for a few elders on the island, the others dare not go to the open sea at all. There are no outsiders on Tianzhu Island. All of them are named Dongfang, Nangong, Ximen, and Baiguo. They belong to 4 major families. 19 years ago, my mother was the first outsider to live on Tianzhu Island, and you were the second. This is also the reason why Mu Yunyi immediately recognized that he was not a local when he heard Zhang Shaikai's name. Mu Yun's words were the same as Zhang Shaikai's guess. Zhang Shaikai was silent. After a while, he raised his eyebrows impatiently. You can't die, don't wrap it up. Can't be sloppy. Mu Yunyi pulled him hard and said seriously, we have to go through the whirlpool when we go out, and I don't know how long we need to soak in the water. If we don't treat it well, the wound will become inflamed, and even more monsters will be attracted. Zhang Shaikai could only stop, and watched patiently that his arm was tangled up ugly and stupidly. Mu Yunyi even tied a bow outside the bandage. Zhang Shaikai closed his eyes and told him that his husband could bend and stretch, and to take revenge for a while. He will kill her anyway. No one knew that something like a bow had appeared on Zhang Shaikai. Mu Yunyi was worried that she would be swept by the undercurrent to a very remote place, but after leaving the cave, she found that they were on Kixian Island. Mu Yunyi was surprised for a moment, and instantly became happy. He stood on tiptoe and pointed Zhang Shaikai to his home. Look, that's my home. In front of me was a bay of deep blue water, on the other side of the sea, dots of light scattered on the island. A huge barrier like the outer water wave stood around the island, and from time to time, a beast hit the barrier, banging loudly in the night. Behind it was a dark night and dense stars. The people on the island are obviously accustomed to this kind of sound. In the night, some bright spots flickered in the sky, exuding a tightness that was completely different from the immortal world that Zhang Shaisai knew. This is an atmosphere that can only be found in a place where you prepare for battle all the year round. 10,000 years have passed, and the world has been turned upside down. The monk fell from the top of the world and became the food of the new overlord. Zhang Shaikai has slept here for 10,000 years, and only today has he had the opportunity to take a closer look at this place. Tianzhu Island is ring-shaped, with a bottomless ocean on the outside, which is the open sea in Wuyun's home. On the inside is an inland sea. Although it is connected to the sea outside, it is already too calm. In the center of the inner sea is Kixian Island. The place where Zhang Shaosai and Mu Yongyi are located is a dark and secluded cave under the rock of Kixian Island. Zhang Shaosai only glanced briefly, and he recognized that the terrain on the island was distributed in an array. It happened that the Icelanders had 4 surnames, and their settlements were arranged in the southeast, northwest, and northwest. Zhang Shaosai sneered. What Nangong, Dongfang, Ximen, and Baiguo are clearly the surnames given to them by the people who built the island for the convenience of management. The so-called 4 big families are not Icelanders at all, but the jailers who stay on Tianju Island to guard and suppress Zhang Shaosai. Tianju Island is the end of the sky and the despair of the sea. There was a cold smile on Zhang Shaosai's lips, but Mu Yongyi did not notice Zhang Shaosai's abnormality. She was earnestly looking for her way home. The curfew is already time, and the flying boat may be out of service. The ship is back. Have it. Zhang Shaosai glanced at Mu Yongyi, frowning. What are you talking about? Go home. Mu Yongyi sighed and said, no matter, go to the dock to try your luck first. Zhang Shaosai looked at her in surprise. Why don't you fly with the sword? Mu Yongyi's eyebrows twitched, and he immediately looked at Zhang Shaosai with a look of protected animals. The flying sword? What age is it, who still uses such an old-fashioned way of driving? Zhang Shaosai was obstructed, and for a long time, he asked incredulously, old-fashioned? Aura is precious, not a single bit can't be wasted. What's more, there are monsters in the seabed, sky, and dense forest. Flying with swords is simply to deliver meals to them. There are safer and cheaper boats, why do you want to fly by yourself? Mu Yongyi saying and beckoning to Zhang Shaosai, he smiled and said, let's go to the dock. Zhang Shaosai stared at the bright smiling face of the girl in front, wondering what was so funny about her just escaping from the dead. No, she is following him right now, maybe she hasn't managed to escape yet. When Mu Yun returned to see that he was not moving, he stepped forward and pulled him. Hurry up, you really have to stop if you don't leave. Zhang Shaosai was dragged away, thinking that this era might really have changed. After awakening for 4,000 years, 100 schools of thought in the cultivating world are contending. Taoism is prosperous, and everything in the world is human cultivation resources. Qiwan 4,000 years. Spiritual energy is exhausted, demons are rampant, the status of humans and other creatures is reversed, and humans become the food for the latter. This era is still rich in silly white sweet. Silly white sweet is very courageous, dare to say that he is old-fashioned. Mu Yongyi was lucky enough to catch the last boat. When he boarded the ship, Zhang Shaosai found that Mu Yongyi did not use the spirit stone to pay the bill, but used a black iron card to gently swipe the entrance, and the ship door opened automatically. Mu Yongyi turned around and reminded him, I paid for 2 people, and you just get on the boat. Zhang Shaosai's cabin was similar to Zhang Shaosai's memory after Mu Yun's return, but the space was much wider. The wooden seats were all replaced with metal. The windows were sealed with a material that Zhang Shaosai had never seen before, although it couldn't open, but can transmit light. Zhang Shaosai glanced quickly and asked, there is no boatman? He was asking a strange question again, and Mu Yongyi sighed, how precious are people now, please be on the boat alone, I'm afraid it will be more expensive than the whole boat. How do you sail the boat? Zhang Shaosai didn't finish thinking about it, but he found that Mu Yongyi was on the button next to his seat and clicked on it. Then, a short-handed puppet slowly moved to Mu Yongyi and Zhang Shaosai, and opened his mouth. Writing, today, on the 8th day of March in the 4th and 20th year of Qiwan, the weather is fine, westerly wind, and 3 levels of wind and waves in the inland sea, suitable for going out to sea. There are local strong winds in the open sea, so don't go if you want to live. Zhang Shaosai raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but hold the puppet's head to look. How do you speak? In the past, there were puppets in the realm of cultivation, but only those with extremely low talents would become yunchi, and those puppets were cumbersome and rigid, and could not do even the simplest movements. But the one in front of him is delicate and light, and even speaks. Talking puppet? The puppet's head was held down, and his two short legs fluttered on the ground. Attack the captain, deduct points. Warning once, warning twice, warning. Mu Yunyi was startled, and hurriedly broke Zhang Shaosai's hand off, while apologizing to the puppet. Sorry, that's how he expresses his liking, please don't record it in the file. The puppet shook his head, his eyes flashing red. The captain is generous not to be held accountable. But in order to express your apologies, please scan the code. The puppet said as he raised his hand. The light flickered in his palm, and finally turned into a round gossip picture. Mu Yunyi rolled his eyes secretly, and said weakly, I want to order food, let's pay together. The captain is happy to serve you. High-quality food is often selected from the simplest ingredients. On the beautiful Tianju Island, a strange kind of red rice grows. It is fragrant and delicious, sweet but not greasy, and is made of red. Rice cakes are loved by young adventurers. Okay, okay. Mu Yun was speechless. She already knew that only the most basic red rice cakes were left on the boat. Mu Yun turned his head and asked, Red rice cake, do you want it? Food? This word is too far away from Zhang Shaokai. Zhang Shaokai asked in surprise, You haven't bigu? Mu Yunyi looked at him quietly. If the doubt in his eyes were not too real, Mu Yunyi suspected that Zhang Shaokai was taunting her. Mu Yunyi said, Only by opening up the two-star veins can bigu. Zhang Shaokai just remembered that bigu does have such a condition. But once the world of cultivating immortals has 3 stars and 4 stars everywhere, as long as the big sect is not stupid, 9-year-old children can get through the 2 stars. Zhang Shaokai was accustomed to seeing immortal cultivators in the wind and rain, and almost thought that bigu was an innate ability of cultivators. Zhang Shaokai shook his head, rejecting food from unknown sources. Besides, this puppet looks stupid. He is not sure that the food the puppet can eat. Mu Yun did not reluctantly return, ordering food, placing an order, swiping tokens, all in one go, and by the way paid the fine for Zhang Shaosai's attack of the puppet. The puppet's eyes swished into green squinting, and his small mouth clicked and said, Thank you for supporting the shipping business of Tianju Island and building a harmonious and beautiful Tianju Island. It is everyone's responsibility. I wish you a happy meal. Something fell from the puppet's belly, and then the copper plate rose up, revealing the small and exquisite paper bag inside. Mu Yunyi looked at Zhang Shaokai tilting his head, as if he was very curious about the structure in the puppet's stomach. She was scared. If Zhang Shaokai attacked the puppet again, she would not be able to pay the fine. Mu Yunyi quickly held Zhang Shaosai's hand with his hand, quickly took out the red rice cake with the other hand, and pressed the end button. The puppet's belly closed, the light in his eyes went out, and Gilyalu rolled to the corner and shut himself. Zhang Shaokai looked at the other person's back and nodded pretentiously, It is indeed much cheaper to put it on the boat than to hire a living person. Hush! Mu Yunyi opened the paper bag while quietly reminding Zhang Shaokai, It can recognize keywords, so don't say bad things about it on the boat. Zhang Shaokai discovered that although all the young people in this world have collapsed, their spells have receded significantly, and their IQs have generally decreased, they have developed to the extreme in some strange tricks. For example, this puppet is far more dexterous than the puppets of Zhang Shaokai's time, and it seems that this is just the most common low-priced substitute on a passenger ship. Zhang Shaokai finally found the only strength in this world. The red rice cake in Mu Yunyi's hand is simple in packaging, small in size, and high in calories. It is an obvious wartime diet. Mu Yunyi finished eating soon, and finally felt his body regain strength. Seeing that she had finished eating, Zhang Shaokai asked, What does the skin code just now mean? Mu Yunyi took out his mysterious iron token and said, this is an identity token. Everyone on the island has it since birth. It records the identity, name, age, and points. The points can be exchanged for tasks, which is considered heavenly. The most important thing on the island. Zhang Shaosai quickly understood, isn't the points just like the spirit stones, gold and silver in the past, it's just a different medium. However, Zhang Shaosai asked, Lingxi, gold and silver are at least in kind, but the points only exist in the token. What if the identity token is lost? Mu Yun was stunned for a moment, and didn't know what to say. The token is lost, just reissue one. The two looked at each other, unable to understand what the other was thinking. Mu Yunyi deeply realizes that people are not in appearance. Zhang Shaokai looks very good, with sword eyebrows and stars, handsome and heroic, and his body is as sharp as a sheathed long sword. When he kicked the poisonous crocodile, he was domineering and decisive, and he seemed to be very powerful, but now, Mu Yunyi slowly felt that if a person has something, he must have a loss. His brain doesn't seem to be very good. The ice cube seemed to not only make him lose part of his memory, it also froze his brain. With this kind of thinking, Mu Yun returned all the way to Zhang Shaosai very tolerant. She thought to herself that it would be too dangerous for a fool with amnesia to live on an isolated island. There have never been outsiders on Tianzhu Island, so there is no inn and other places. To save the people and send the Buddha to the west, she should take Zhang Shaokai back to her home. I hope that after a few warm days, his mind will gradually recover. It was early morning when Mu Yun returned home, and it was late at night when he returned. The doorway still kept the appearance of Mu Yunyi when she left. His mother was dead, and only Mu Yun was left at home. No one came out to look for her after she fell into the sea. Fortunately, no one is looking for her, or I am afraid that she will not fall into the undercurrent without her luck. Mu Yunyi skillfully opened the restriction, and without a break, he went to prepare a room for Zhang Shaokai. It is getting late and it is not convenient to clean up the room. You will stay in my mother's room for the time being. Don't worry, I will clean every day for the past 3 years. There will be dust. Zhang Shaokai followed behind and looked at the room silently. As soon as Mu Yunyi entered the house, he hurried to find the medicine chest. Zhang Shaosai was bitten through several blood holes by the poisonous crocodile. Resources on the island are scarce, and most of the supplies are concentrated in the hands of the 4 major families. Mu Yunyi had to hunt for warcraft independently, so the family always stocked medicine. Mu Yunyi quickly took out the medicine box. Zhang Shaosai was also very cooperative, allowing Mu Yunyi to hold his hand. In the past, Nangang Xian was often injured, and Mu Yunyi couldn't be more proficient in helping others deal with their wounds. She felt the pulse of Zhang Shaosai, startled slightly, and felt it again. It won't go wrong this time, his pulse is deeply wounded, but there is no devilish energy. Mu Yunyi was taken aback. This situation was completely beyond her cognition. When she was in the cave, she also noticed that there was devilish energy on Zhang Shaosai's wound. Why did she disappear now? Strange. Mu Yunyi frowned tightly. Where is the devil? Zhang Shaokai's eyelashes drooped slightly, unable to see the look in his eyes. He was very cold and quiet, and said, since the devilish energy is gone, then it's all right. You can go back. Mu Yunyi sighed, and now he can only do this. She put away the medicine box, only then did she notice that the two of them were blood-stained and embarrassed. She hurriedly led Zhang Shao to resign to the bathing room and showed him, this is a bathtub, where you can adjust the switch and temperature. Because people on the island are often injured, there is a medicated bath mode in the gossip plate, which is formulated according to the type of monsters. If you are a veteran of the sea, you can directly dispense the medicine yourself. But you'd better not move. Zhang Shaokai looked at her, his eyes narrowed slightly, and the raised tail of his eyes suddenly became dangerous. What do you mean? Nothing. Mu Yunyi shook her head. She naturally wouldn't say in front of Zhang Shaosai, lest he hurt his self-esteem. Mu Yunyi felt that there was nothing to explain. She was about to go out when she suddenly thought of something, almost forgot, "You didn't change your clothes." Mu Yunyi hurried out to find clean clothes. Zhang Shaokai slowly followed her, across the threshold, watching her rummaging through boxes and cabinets in her room. Zhang Shaokai examined it for a long while, raising his eyebrows and said, "You are a girl who lives alone, with such a big heart. Bring home a strange man who didn't know him at all, and now he is not looking for anything." She couldn't survive in the former immortal cultivation world, and now she is short of resources. How did she survive until now? Mu Yun had lived by himself for so many years, and he was not completely defenseless. She dared to bring the other person back. The first reason was that he was afraid of accident on the island. The second reason was that the boy had saved her twice. The third and most important point was that he had no cultivation base. Mu Yunyi didn't know what he had encountered, but now Zhang Shaosai didn't have any aura in his body. Mu Yunyi has the ability to protect himself, so he won't be too defensive about Zhang Shao's resignation. What's more, looking at his performance along the way, Mu Yunyi felt that although this young man had a bad head, he still had good cultivation. Mu Yunyi's voice was light, and he said naturally, "Others are others, but I believe in you." Zhang Shaokai was stunned for a moment, then sneered. Mu Yunyi found a new set of clothes from the innermost layer of the closet, and said, "This was originally a birthday gift I was going to give Nangongsuan, and it has not been sent out yet. I think you two are about the same age, so let's try it for now." As usual, Zhang Shaosai would never touch other people's clothes, even if they belonged to other men in name. However, today is different. Zhang Shaokai can only bear it. He took the clothes and found that it was a black long dress with sleeves and sleeves. The style was neat and clean, but the details were exquisite and careful. Zhang Shaokai turned over, and barely accepted Mu Yunyi's taste. If it was that kind of fancy clothes, he would never wear it. However, Zhang Shaokai looked towards Mu Yunyi and asked, "What is the relationship between that man named Nangongxian and you?" "Nothing." Mu Yunyi was reluctant to talk about this topic. She doesn't know why she dreamed of the Chuancha girl and the great man. She has no way to verify the true or false of the dream, but as long as she thinks that the partner who grew up will open up her harem, she is not picky. Can't treat Nangongxian with a normal heart. Anyway, there was already Miss Dongfang around Nangongxian, and Mu Yunyi gradually became estranged from Nangongxian, and since then he withdrew from their lives. Even thinking about it would not affect anything. Zhang Shaokai looked at Mu Yunyi's expression, raised an eyebrow, and asked with a smile, "Do you like him?" "Don't talk nonsense." Mu Yunyi raised his head and glared at Zhang Shaosai, and said seriously, "Nangongsuan is just my companion. He has helped me and my mother a lot over the years. I regard him as a sibling family, and nothing else." "Other meanings?" "He has a fiancé." Zhang Shaokai nodded and gave a faint hum. It turned out to be a story of a childhood sweetheart who couldn't have a crush and can only be a brother and sister. Zhang Shaosai is not interested in Mu Yunyi's love history, but he must master Mu Yunyi's interpersonal relationship. Zhang Shaokai's foundation is now completely destroyed, and he desperately needs a quiet place to recuperate and restore his cultivation. Before he regains his strength, the less people know of his existence, the better. Mu Yunyi is a foreigner, and he is separated from the Icelanders. Coupled with the death of his mother, Zuma transfers his love to each other. Zhang Shaokai only needs to be careful not to let Mu Yunyi continue to provoke Nangongxian to ensure his safety. Therefore, Zhang Shaokai leaned on the door frame and glanced at Mu Yunyi from a condescending manner. "At a young age, concentrate on cultivating. Don't think about the love of men and women. If you have a high level of cultivation, you won't get anything, but if the cultivation base is low, it's useless to pay. The truth is true, but Mu Yungi raised his head and looked at him in surprise. "Why are you preaching? You are not much older than me, right?" Zhang Shaokai laughed, turned, and left. Really speaking of her age, Zhang Shaokai was afraid that she could scare her to death. When Mu Yun returned to see Zhang Shaokai entering the room, he raised his voice specifically to remind him, "The new quilt is in the cupboard on the west wall. I can find it." Zhang Shaokai turned around to close the door, and gave her a cold glance. "Handle it yourself." After speaking, he closed the door with a slam. Mu Yungi looked down at herself and found that her body was covered with blood, her clothes had been scratched several times, and her face was dirty. Mu Yungi touched his face and quietly went back to take a bath and apply medicine. After a whole lot of tossing today, her body can't hold it anymore, and she will have to go to school tomorrow. The night is quiet, the sea slowly washes the reef, and the sound of the tide is endless. The lights in Yun's home dimmed, and soon the small courtyard fell into darkness. Zhang Shaokai sat in the darkness, and when Mu Yun returned there was no more. He stood up and silently looked at the furnishings in the room. He stopped next to the bathtub, his fingertips stayed in one place for 2 breaths, and a light blue aura of gossip popped out. The gossip disc is divided into 3 layers, inside and outside, with different symbols on each layer. Zhang Shaokai dialed it at will, remembering an ancient lock that was unlocked by turning a disc. It's just that the symbols that can be input on this gossip board have greatly increased. Zhang Shaokai released his hand and found that when the gossip plate was not touched, about 10 breaths disappeared automatically. Zhang Shaokai tried it again and quickly determined that the Bagua array was triggered by temperature. This is not a formation he is familiar with, but it is unexpectedly convenient. The age of dominance deprived human beings of their ability to cultivate, but it stimulated their new talents. Maybe, this is the person. After Zhang Shaokai tested the principle, he no longer wasted time, but directly transferred to the medicated bath column and carefully looked at the various parameters. Mu Yungi said it was right, here you can freely adjust the proportion of the herbs. Everybody's constitution and injury are different. The default medicine in the tub is too rigid and may not be suitable for everyone. Experts and veterans prefer to come by themselves. Unfortunately, Zhang Shaokai swept from start to finish, and did not find any herbs he was familiar with. Zhang Shaokai's face was grim, and it seemed that he had to prepare for the worst. The environment of the world of cultivating immortals has changed dramatically in 10,000 years. Not only the beasts undergoing abnormal changes under the nourishment of demonic energy, but also the plants. This also means that all the pills and secret recipes that Zhang Shaokai knows are invalid. Now his body is full of holes, which is not good news for him. Zhang Shaokai retracted his finger, and the blue aura hovered for a while before it went out suddenly. The room returned to silence. Zhang Shaokai looked at his palm and slowly clenched his fist. Those who harmed him had better live a long life, and he would get back what they took from him. The first night that Mu Yungi and Zhang Shaokai lived together passed by the sound of the endless waves. Early the next morning, Mu Yungi was awakened by sirens. She was lying on the bed in a daze, and she was instantly awake when she heard another sharp reminder sound from the yard. Someone broke through their door? Mu Yungi jumped out of bed, quickly pulled his coat from the screen, and ran outside the house. However, there was no dangerous person she imagined in the yard, only Zhang Shaokai stood in the morning light, slamming the door again and again. The sky was faint, the sea was gleaming with fine phosphorescence, and the entire yard was shrouded in a light blue cool tone. Zhang Shaokai stood in the backlight, dressed in black, as if he had divided the dawn. His complexion is fair, his brows are more like swords in black, his lips are red and his teeth are white. He is taller than Nangongsuan, with a thinner waist and longer legs. Nangongsuan wears the same gloomy and burly clothes, but he wears cold and beautiful. Mu Yun was in a daze for a moment. The first reaction was that the night had passed, and Yu still hadn't recovered his IQ. No, Zhang Shaokai still hadn't recovered to normal. The second reaction was to ask Zhang Shaokai, "What are you doing?" Zhang Shaokai turned around calmly and innocently, pointed to the door, and said, "Your door is broken and cannot be opened." Zhang Shaokai didn't sleep all night and was studying the things Mu Yun returned home. Even though he had never seen it before, Zhang Shaokai was a smart man after all, and he quickly figured out a general way to use it. After dawn, Zhang Sha resigned to go out to breathe, and found that the door could not be opened. This kind of thing can't trouble the genius. Zhang Shaokai took out the results of last night's research, but he tried all the possibilities, pressure, temperature, password, and sound. No matter what, he couldn't open the door. A mere door from the age of Dharma could not stop Zhang Shaokai, but he just got on the bar and had to unlock the door. Then Mu Yun returned. Mu Yunyi looked at him, speechless for a moment. It is rare that he has a bad brain and is so confident that Mu Yunyi is embarrassed to hit him. She sighed slightly, and whispered, "It's not broken, but there is a restriction on the door. Look, open it like this." Mu Yunyi approached Zhang Shaokai. Zhang Shaokai stepped aside, watching her movements quietly. Mu Yunyi pressed her finger on the floating platform next to the gate. A burst of light gathered from her fingertips and spread out, and with a click, the door opened. Zhang Shaokai twitched his eyebrows, trying to hold back his emotions. Relying on fingerprints, so mentally retarded? After Mu Yun returned to open the door, he paused for a while before remembering that there was no fingerprint of Zhang Shaokai at home. No wonder he couldn't open the door. Mu Yunyi was a little embarrassed and tried to explain, "The principle of opening the door is based on your fingers. If you look carefully at your fingertips, there will be fine lines on it." "I know." Zhang Shaokai raised his hand and asked calmly, "How to save it?" The reaction was quite quick, and Mu Yunyi had just started, and he guessed what Mu Yunyi was going to say. Zhang Shaokai's hands are very beautiful, with slender fingers, well-proportioned joints, and thin calluses on the fingertips and tiger's mouth. At first glance, they are double-stretched hands. Mu Yunyi held his index finger, pressed it on the floating platform for a while, and said, "Okay. If you want to go out in the future, unlock the door normally, don't stimulate the alarm anymore." Zhang Shaokai hummed indifferently. The sea breeze blows and blows Mu Yunyi's hair onto Zhang Shaokai. Only then did Mu Yunyi realize that her clothes are disheveled, so she stood at the door and talked to Zhang Shaokai for a long time. Mu Yunyi's face turned red all of a sudden. Zhang Shaokai stood by, a full head taller than her. He didn't look at Mu Yunyi, and said casually, "Don't you need to go to the school?" Mu Yun's remarks reminded him that he ran back to tidy up his appearance. Zhang Shaokai slowly opened the door and looked at the environment silently. I don't know if the Icelanders rejected the Mu's family or Mu Yunyi's mother deliberately moved away. The front is the sea, the back is the forest, and the roar of the beasts outside can be faintly heard. Zhang Shaokai was very satisfied with this environment, living in isolation, hidden in the environment, and convenient to exercise his hands and feet, which was very suitable for him. Zhang Shaokai returned to the courtyard, just when he bumped into Mu Yunyi and ran out. Mu Yunyi has changed into a white disciple suit, with simple hair tied up, revealing a smooth face, dark apricot eyes, and a slender neck. He looks heroic and energetic. She saw Zhang Shaokai and quickly said, "I'm going to school. I will come back earlier today to show you the way." The Icelanders are very xenophobic, so don't walk around by yourself. Zhang Sha resigned and nodded. If not necessary, he did not want to meet the Icelanders who were responsible for guarding him. Mu Yunyi crossed Zhang Shaokai's body and went out. The young man stood at the door with long legs and full of heroic spirit. When Mu Yunyi passed by, he could smell the cedar on his body. Mu Yunyi didn't think much about it when he brought Zhang Shaokai back last night, but now she felt a little bit different from Zhang Shaokai's mother. The school was almost late, and Mu Yun couldn't think about it when he returned, so he ran out quickly. She walked 2 steps and stopped slowly. Upon seeing this, Zhang Shaokai asked, "What else is there?" Mu Yun turned his head back, his lips moved, and he thought about it again and again. When you are at home by yourself, you should spend more time in the yard basking in the Sunday. Zhang Shaokai was stunned and asked, "What's this saying?" Mu Yun returned to his words and stopped, and finally hinted, "It's nothing. More sunshine may be good for you." Maybe, the brain that was stuck in ice was thawed. Mu Yungi rushed down the mountain range, but luckily he caught up with the flying boat leading to the school in time. Mu Yungi swiped his identity token, and as soon as he sat on his seat, the flying boat started. Mu Yun leaned against the window of Xian, watching the flying boat rise from the ground. The trees and houses shrank quickly, and finally turned into a miniature toy. The red roof is hidden in the bushes, and in the distance is a tile blue sea and a mirror-like sky. Mu Yun sighed in his heart, what a beautiful sight, but it was a cruel and bloodthirsty monster under the calm sea. The flying boat flew in the air, much faster than the boat, and it didn't take long for Mu Yun to return to the school. She stepped off the flying boat and walked to her classroom skillfully. She is very serious about cultivation, and she has always been the first and second person to come to the school. Today, because of Zhang Xiao's resignation, she went out a little late. When she entered, there were already many people in the house. Now that the master hasn't come, the classroom is buzzing, and everyone is talking to familiar seniors. As Mu Yun returned, the room seemed to have been pressed the pause button, and the voice fell silent one after another. Mu Yun looked back as if there was nothing, and carefully put his pen and ink on his seat. At this moment, an extremely surprised voice came from behind, "Mu Yun is back." Mu Yun turned back, and as expected, he saw an acquaintance. Yesterday she deliberately killed her book-wearing girl, Dongfang Li. Mu Yungi turned around, and when the people outside saw Mu Yungi, their pupils suddenly tightened. Standing at the door were Dongfang Li and her attendant Dongfang Mo. Dongfang Mo's eyes were round and his lips were wide open, as if he had seen a ghost in the day. Dongfang Li was a little more decent, but her hands clenched tightly still revealed her feelings. Dongfang Li looked calm, but he was already madly asking the system, "What's going on? Didn't you say that you will die if you fall into that sea area? Why is Mu Yungi still alive? The system also seems to be chaotic. Mu Yungi is just immortal now, there is no reason to survive, the host is safe and not irritable, we are urgently remedying, and immediately provide a new solution for the host." Dongfang Li took a deep breath, tried hard several times, and finally managed to control his expression. Dongfang Li smiled at Mu Yungi, and said in a cheerful tone, "Mu Yungi, you are fine." She tried her best to express the surprise of discovering that her companion had come back to life, but it fell in Mu Yungi's ears. No matter how she listened, Dongfang Li regretted how you didn't die. Yet, why didn't she die? Mu Yun pursed his lips and faintly smiled at Dongfang Li. The smile was like a splash of water. It was fleeting. After I fell into the sea yesterday, there was a whirlpool just below. I was caught in the whirlpool, and the poison was thrown away. Toothed crocodile. It was late when I woke up, so I didn't disturb you and went home by myself. Yesterday, Dongfang Li deliberately alarmed the monsters when retreating in order to solve the threat of Bai Yueguang, and pretended to fall to the ground while rescuing, and successfully dragged Nangongxian and let Mu Yun fall into the deep sea. Dongfang spent so many hands and feet in order to create the illusion of Mu Yungi's accidental death. After all, Dahai was unpredictable, and no one would doubt that he died in the mouth of a sea beast. Even the male protagonist Nangongxian did not doubt it. Dongfang Li succeeded in one blow, and he was so happy last night. Now there are only 2 women who have a relationship with the male lead, one is her and the other is Mu Yungi. As long as Dongfang Li resolves Mu Yungi, then she will be able to sit firmly on the throne of the chaotic wife who accompanies the male protagonist to share the joys and sufferings, and even replace Mu Yungi as the male protagonist's new white moonlight. Dongfang Li was laughing while sleeping yesterday. Today, he went out beautifully. Who knew that when he entered the school, he saw Mu Yungiquan sitting inside. Dongfang Li gritted his teeth and twitched the corners of his lips, and said with a stiff smile, "The priest sister is very lucky. After the senior sister fell yesterday, we have been looking for you down the cliff for a long time. Brother Xian even wanted to go to the sea, so we persuaded it. Now that the senior sister is safe, when we come back, we are not in vain. Brother Xian had a fever in a hurry to find you yesterday. He is still sick at home now." In Dongfang Li's words, there was an oath of sovereignty, but Mu Yun heard it, but only found it ridiculous. Dongfang Li treats Nangang Xian as a treasure, but Mu Yungi doesn't care. Nangang Xuan said he wanted to go to the sea to find her, but in the end, didn't he jump down? In the same situation, if Mu Yungi heard that Nangang Xian had fallen into the sea, he would have followed without a word, but Nangang Xian did not. The so-called childhood sweethearts, relying on each other for fate, is nothing more than that. Mu Yungi said indifferently, "Thank you for your loyalty, brothers and sisters, but you don't have to do this kind of thing in the future. You two are family leaders, and you are about to tie the knot. If something happens to me, I can't afford it." After speaking, Mu Yun glanced over Dongfang Li's feet, and asked casually, "I seem to see junior sister's feet before falling off the cliff. Is junior sister okay?" Dongfang Li just remembered that she did pretend to sprain her foot yesterday. She has always pretended to be very delicate in front of Nangang Xian, but today Nangang Xian took a leave of absence. Dongfang Li thought that she was about to become the male protagonist by Yue Guang, and she was held in the palm of her hand all the way, and then she was held on the throne of the queen many years later. I walked happily and fluttered, how can I remember to camouflage a foot injury? Suddenly, she was mentioned by Mu Yungi now. Dongfang Li stiffened for a moment, and immediately put on a firm and painful look, and said, "Small injuries, don't get in the way." This school was organized by the Dongfang family and the Nangang family. When Dongfang Li was talking, other people sat quietly and listened. Now, when Dongfang Li mentioned the foot injury, the good people immediately stepped forward and helped Dongfang Li to sit down. Dongfang Li took the opportunity to sit in his seat. Dongfang Mo followed from behind and quickly laid out the pen, ink, paper and inkstone for Dongfang Li. Dongfang Li sat, feeling at ease and enjoying the courtesy of others, like a queen patrolling the territory. Mu Yungi glanced, and coldly retracted his gaze. The school was built at the junction of Dongfang and Nangang family, and there were fans of Dongfang family everywhere. Mu Yun belonged to an outsider, and it was not suitable to be here to tear his face with Dongfang Li. Even if she knew Dongfang Li deliberately killed her. However, the situation is stronger than that of people, and it is not worth taking a moment of life. According to Nangang Xuan's plot, Mu Yungi, Nangang Xuan and Dongfang Li will all leave Tianzhu Island in the future and join new sects in the Immortal continent. It's not too late for a gentleman to take revenge for 10 years, and she will have a chance in the future. It's time for class, but the master doesn't know what happened, and he hasn't come yet. It shouldn't be said, but how could these young masters care about this? Dongfang Li talked with young girls who were close to her generation at will. As for the side branch, oh, Miss Dongfang didn't recognize these people as her relatives. A familiar lady asked, "I heard that Nangang Xuan had a fever yesterday. Is it serious?" Nangang Xuan was originally a joke of the Nangang family, but since Nangang Xuan opened a star vein last month, everyone's attitude towards him suddenly became more subtle. Even during the first month, Dongfang Li made a big reluctance to divorce, and the criticism in the direct circle quickly changed from Dongfang Li's self-willing depravity to the beat of wisdom. Today, Nangang Xuan just didn't come to class, so many people inquired. Dongfang Li was quite contented. She glanced at Mu Yungi secretly, holding the gesture of a winner, and said, "Fortunately, I followed yesterday. I saw that his condition was not right, so I hurriedly sent him home and called our house. His doctor went over. His fever was strange. The doctor couldn't tell the reason. He could only prescribe medicine and drink it first. After finishing school, I will go to Nangong's house to see. As soon as the people around heard it, many voices responded immediately, and they wanted to accompany Dongfang Li to visit the patient. Dongfang Mo smiled and said, Senior Xian Jiren has his own natural state, and he will definitely get better soon. Sister Li is really envious of others for being so dedicated to senior brother Xian. Dongfang Li listened to everyone's flattery, and felt very comfortable inside. She couldn't help sweeping towards Mu Yongyi with her remaining light, but to a surprise, Mu Yongyi's face did not look down or jealous, but rather calm and elegant, turning over the book she was going to talk about today. The position of Mu Yongyi was far less than that of Dongfang Li. She was sitting in front of the tall partition window, with the bamboo curtain next to it halfway through, and the breeze blew over the hanging ears, and even her hair was slightly swayed. She wore a uniformly distributed white disciple uniform. There was no extra decoration on the clothes, but the plain colors and simple cuts showed the girl's slender and beautiful figure more and more. Mu Yongyi sat upright, his back was straight, and his profile was extremely beautiful. At this moment, she lowered her eyes and was reading the book on the case seriously. The sun shines in from her side, giving her a hazy golden light, which looks more and more like a painting from a distance. Past life Mu Yongyi can become Nangong Xian's heart moonlight. Even if Nangong Xian has 3,000 beauties, he still can't forget it. In addition to childhood sweethearts and life-saving reasons, Mu Yongyi's appearance also accounts for a large part of the reason. Mu Yun returned to black hair like clouds, his skin was better than snow, and his eyes sparkled, not like people on the island, but more like Qianjiahu dolls piled up by the snow country. She looks immortal and pure, but when she is smiling, she is like a spring breeze for 10 miles and 10 miles of flowers. Mu Yongyi can become Bai Yue Guang, and his hardware appearance and software personality are all occupied. No wonder Nangong Xian has been thinking about it for half his life. Dongfang watched it sharply and felt like a fishbone in his heart. Which girl doesn't like pretty? When Dongfang Li just crossed over, she saw the face of the original body in the mirror, and she was crazy with joy. But when she met Mu Yongyi, she knew what it means to be like a heaven and a human being, and what it means to bring immortality. Mu Yongyi's appearance is as if he is open, beautiful, and not in the same style as the people around him. Dongfang Li is also a beautiful woman in the crowd, but standing in front of Mu Yongyi, she suddenly loses kitsch. Dongfang Li would get angry every time she saw Mu Yongyi. She secretly made up her mind that she must get rid of Mu Yongyi as soon as possible while the hero's feelings for Bai Yue Guang were not deep. Otherwise, only Mu Yongyi's face would be cheating. The late master finally came in, the whispers in the school stopped, Mu Yongyi also put down his book and looked at the master. The master gave a few opening remarks, saying, I am late today because I received a major event halfway through. The elders decided to resume the island competition this year, and the registration will begin soon. The students below were astonished. In the early days, Tianzhu Island would host an island competition, once every 10 years, and only participants under the age of 30 would participate. It was a grand event on the whole island. It is a pity that the apocalypse was cut off and the resources on the island became more and more scarce. I don't know when the competition started. Unexpectedly, it recovered again this year. The students were surprised for a while, and immediately became excited, chatting with people around them. The master banged on the ruler and shouted 3 times of silence before controlling the scene. The master said with a solemn face, the specifics are still being discussed, but in order to urge the younger generations to practice, the elders have given out a lot of prizes. Look! The master waved his sleeves, and several phantom shadows appeared on the teaching desk. They were enlarged according to the actual ratio, and they were slowly rotating. This is the prize of this competition. Qing Fang grass, Qi gathering pill, condensing star spirit liquid, jade phoenix hairpin, and a copy of the Immortal Realm technique, the universe and heavenly secret art. There was a loud noise from below, the shouts of the young girls almost rushed open the roof, and Mu Yungi's eyes became excited. But she didn't do it for the Immortal World technique, but because of hairpin. The snow-white, lifelike phoenix hairpin belongs to the mother. Her mother accidentally came to Tianju Island that year. Although she gave birth to Muyun safely, she was seriously injured at sea and has not seen any better since. It is not easy for orphans and widows to settle down on the island. In order to be accommodated by the 4 major families, the mother took the initiative to hand over her treasures to the heads of the various families. This jade phoenix hairpin alone does not seem to be of much use, and luckily kept it till now. Now, this hairpin was pulled out by which elder and took it out as a prize for the competition. The master waited until the young people below were almost relieved, and then continued, as you guessed, this immortal realm exercise was the passageway opened 1,000 years ago, and it was the heavenly level exercise given by the immortal when he landed on Tianju Island. Immortal. The mana is far surpassing Tianju Island. I don't need to repeat how rare this exercise is. It's a chance to get it. The prizes are given out according to the rankings. Those who rank first can give priority to the selection of prizes. Needless to say, the first place will definitely choose Universal Secret Art. The disciples have given the prizes a default ranking. Everyone wants the exercises, but this is a secret method given by immortals 1,000 years ago. Ordinary people may have their lives to enjoy, so everyone was excited for a while, and their eyes turned to other rewards. In addition to the Kyunkan Tianjiju, King Fangko, Qi Gathering Pill, and Ning Xing Ling Yi are all very practical things. As for the Jade Phoenix hairpin, the male disciple is not interested. Even if the female disciple likes the exquisite hairpin, it can eat and eat. Compared with the elixir used, they still prefer the other 3. Only Mu Yungi bit his lip lightly, his eyes full of certainty. Yesterday, in order to save Zhang Shao, she reluctantly used her mother's last relic. She was a little low, and today she suddenly saw another thing from her mother's life. Mu Yungi secretly clenched the palm of her hand. No matter what, she would get this hosta. Although others have little interest in Yufeng hairpin, she should be ranked as high as possible just in case. The first is best, the second is also fine. Because in addition to her, the first place will inevitably choose the universe of heaven. In fact, if it were not for his mother's relics, Mu Yungi would also like to try this exercise. This tactic is both heaven and earth and heaven, and it is very powerful just by hearing the name. The master also talked about the precautions for the competition and the registration fee. Mu Yungi's eyes widened astonished when he heard about the registration fee. It's so high? No wonder the elders were so generous and took out so many prizes at one time. It turned out that he wanted to get it back from the registration fee. There are only 5 prizes, but there is no limit to the number of disciples who can sign up. Mu Yungi sighed slightly. Sure enough, on Tianju Island, no one can take advantage of the 4 major families, and everyone must participate in the game according to the rules they set. Even if Mu Yungi is not angry, she has nothing to do. She twists her eyebrows slightly, silently considering how to earn the high registration fee. Previously, because of her mother's illness, the family had never been wealthy. After her mother was gone, Mu Yungi had to live and go to school, so she couldn't save much. Now, this money has become a big mountain hanging over Mu Yungi's head. Because of the big competition, the students were very emotional, and the master tried several times but couldn't get the students to concentrate on the class. The master had no choice but to give up the lecture, instead telling them about the immortal world. It's difficult to practice on Tianju Island, but it's not the case in the immortal world. They have excellent exercises and mental methods. 1 star and 2 stars can be seen everywhere, in addition to complete alchemy, formations, refining tools, and talisman. Inheritance, and even opened an independent sword repair sect. In the early years when the passage was not cut off, every time the Immortal came, Tianzhu Island was greatly shocked. I waited in front of the Immortal to be like an ant, even standing together unworthy. Children born in the apocalypse era are lucky, and even some children with high talents and diligence will be valued by the Immortals and taken to the immortal world. Alas, this kind of opportunity, I will be blessed in this life. The master was full of yearning. Not only the master, but everyone on Tianzhu Island paid homage to the fairy. The Icelanders don't know where Tianzhu Island is, what the immortal world is like, and where is the entrance, but it does not prevent them from worshipping those immortals who have vast magical powers and come across the sea. The four great families called each time an immortal came to Tianzhu Island as Tiankai, and named the small island in the center of the inland sea as Kixian Island and built an altar on it. The top elites of the four major clans guarded the island of Kixian, and meticulously maintained the operation of the altar in accordance with the instructions of the immortals every day. Unfortunately, since 1,000 years ago, the immortal suddenly disappeared, and no one came to Tianzhu Island after that. Until 19 years ago, Mu Yungi's mother had no intention of entering the coast. The Icelanders knew that there were still people outside. Now there is one more Zhang Shao's resignation, but it is a pity that Mu Yungi didn't know when he came. The master seemed to say that he was addicted, and he kept chattering, "We regard immortals as gods, but in the eyes of immortals, the world of immortals has been greatly weakened. I heard that there are geniuses in the ancient times, and the natural star chart is lit up, and they were born as one-star cultivators. There are also various spirit bodies, such as the glazed spirit body that naturally restrains the heart demon, the innate Dao body that can automatically absorb aura, the unique pure yin and pure yang body, and various rare talents such as sword heart, Buddha heart, and piano heart. But this is not the most unusual. The truly rare one is a kind of aptitude called entering the star vein. The previous few Mu Yungi have heard of it, but entering Xingmei has never heard of it before. Mu Yungi looked at the master earnestly, waiting for what he would say next, and the other disciples also urged, "Master, what is entering the star vessel?" The master didn't know what he thought of, and sighed, "In fact, this is not a spiritual body for cultivation, but a person. 10,000 years ago, there was a genius in the immortal world. He cultivated so fast. I learned that there is still the top-level qualification of entering the star veins. The world named the star veins after the standard of that genius. This is the only case since the immortal world has records. It is said that there is no bottleneck in entering the star veins. If ordinary people cultivate from 1 star to it takes a year for 2 stars, and it may take 10 years to go from 2 stars to 3 stars, and so on, the more advanced it is, the more difficult it is. However, there is no such limit to entering the star vessel. As long as the opportunity arrives, you can even be upgraded to 2 levels in a year. Talent is hard to see in eternity. Being born with spirit, not only speaks, but also stores a star map in the sea of knowledge. Every time a star vein is opened in the human body, a star can be illuminated by the sea of consciousness. Each person's star map is different, but the principles of operation are the same. The star map is divided into 7 levels, the first Tianzhu, the second Tianji, the third Tianji, the fourth Tianchuan, the fifth Yuheng, the sixth Qiang, and the 7th Yaoguang. The corresponding star veins are called Tianzhu. The veins extend to the Yaoguang veins, but for convenience in daily life, everyone uses 1 star vein and 2 star veins for short. Before getting through the star veins, he was immortal. Although he can nourish his body with spiritual energy, it only makes his movements more agile and thinking, which has the effect of prolonging life and prolonging life. Once the star vein is opened, the power will undergo a qualitative change. 1 star vein can release spells such as gold, wood, water, fire, soil, ice, thunder, and wind. 2 star veins can fly through the valley and fly in the air, which is a real reincarnation and step into the fairy gate. 3 star veins can independently release large-scale lethal spells. 4 star veins can moving mountains and seas. 5 star vessels began to develop their own Tao. As for going further, it would be out of Mu Yungi's understanding. Even before heaven punishment, during the most prosperous years of Immortal Dao, the 3 stars and 4 stars were everywhere, but the 5 stars were still rare. As for the 6 stars, there have been only a handful of monks who have opened up the Yang channels throughout the ages. The 7-star vessels only existed in legends. Mu Yungi knew that many years later, Nangang Xian opened up the 7-star vessels and became the first person in the Immortal Realm to directly become the Emperor in the Immortal Realm continent. At the end of the Awakening Era, the Age of Domination came, and the beasts prospered on the ground instead of human beings. The monks divide the monsters and magic plants into 1 to 7 according to their power level. Because beasts are not as intelligent as humans, monks can generally leapfrog to challenge monsters, but the higher the level, the more common the 2 levels are dangerous, the more the 3rd level. I just wanted to die by myself. Mu Yungi was fascinated by it. She has been practicing since she was 3 years old, and for 15 years up to now, she has been unimpeded, never slack, nor has she got through the most basic star vein. 2 levels a year. She really can't imagine, Mu Yungi even doubts, does this kind of person really exist? Not only Mu Yungi thought this way, but also many others questioned it. A young master of the Nangang family yelled, raising 2 levels in a year is too mysterious. Most of those people are bragging about it because we don't know it. It's so difficult to get through 1 star vein, let alone even higher. They are bragging too much. The master shook his head, you don't need to believe it, but you must be in awe. Xiaochang can't talk about it, and we don't know the spring and autumn. In the eyes of those arrogants, maybe we are Xiaochang. Many young people in the room were disdainful, and some people deliberately booed and asked, Master, since you are so godly about entering the stars, what is this person's name? The master sighed, I have been trapped on Tianzhu Island all my life. Where can I get a glimpse of the world of immortal figures? These are the people who had the honor to meet immortals and recorded them on paper when the apocalypse came before. After thousands of years, I saw them again. Yes. Everything you hear and see on the paper are all from fairy dialogues. As for the name of the proud man of heaven, the fairy has never said it clearly, and I have no way of knowing it. There were high and low sighs in the school, and everyone obviously didn't believe it. The master patted the ruler again, lowered his face, and said majestically, don't go chatting, sit down and start the class. The big game is about to be, and you will have to practice harder and harder. If you are lucky enough to catch up with the apocalypse, maybe the fairy will take you to the outside world. Then you will be able to ask the name of that immortal venerable. The appellation of the realm of cultivating immortals is not screaming. Immortal venerable is a respect for Qiang Xing. After hearing this, the students exclaimed, he is the 6-star venerable. The master nodded, yes. The fairy is very evasive when talking about him, but he always respectfully calls him the Xian Zun. It should be Qiang Xing no doubt. Qiang Star, the young people here opened their eyes wide, and felt a moment of loss. The vast majority of them would not even be able to get through the Tianzhu channel in this life, and the world in which Qiang is located is too far away from them, so far away that they don't even know how to construct it in their dreams. But the most indispensable thing for young people is courage. No one knows whether they can wait for the apocalypse in this life, but it does not prevent them from surging with blood, as if the legendary and magnificent fairy world is already under their feet. Mu Yungi was also very excited, because she knew that the passage had been opened. Thanks to Dongfang Li's blessing, Mu Yun dreamed of Nangongxuan's inspirational experience and learned that in the near future, Tianzhu Island, which has been forgotten for 1,000 years, will suddenly welcome guests. Later, they will be taken to the Immortal Realm continent and start a new life. If nothing else, Mu Yungi is one of them, and he will die in a certain secret outside. It's really a future that people don't know if they should look forward to. But in the school, the master was still encouraging them to cultivate hard and change their fate against the sky. Mu Yun knew that this was an idiom, but still inevitably looked forward to it. What is the outside world like? Who is the person who has access to the stars? Because of the gossip about half a class, the theory class was quickly over. The next section is the practice class. Mu Yoongi sat in the practice room, meditating skillfully, and soon entered a state of meditation. She is trying to sense her star map. Everything is difficult at the beginning. If you get through a star vein and find out where your star map is, there will be a direction for future cultivation. Rather than looking for Tianchi star in the darkness like Mu Yoongi presents, floating and feeling helpless. Mu Yoongi gradually entered a realm of mystery and the unity of heaven and man. At this moment, a system sound suddenly sounded in his ears, and immediately dragged Mu Yoon back to reality. Dongfang Li was sitting on the pad, her eyes closed, seeming to be meditating, but she was actually talking to the system in her mind. Dongfang Li realized that no one could hear the system's voice, and said unscrupulously, "System, didn't you say that you have transferred Mu Yoongi's luck to me, then why should I practice?" Mu Yoon closed his eyes slightly and his eyelashes trembled abruptly. The system said, "Host, the time effect of the Chi luck transfer talisman is limited. Last month it was supposed to be Mu Yoongi to open up the Tianchi star vessel, you used the Chi luck talisman to forcefully transfer the chance to you. Now the Chi luck transfer talisman has expired. You have no good luck halo." Dongfang Li complained in his heart, "The Chi luck transfer talisman is too expensive. Just redeeming this one will cost all of my points. Now I can't even change a pill. It really hurts." The system glanced at the system and said, "Host, the road is long and difficult, you'd better not embrace this fluke. Mu Yoongi was supposed to get through the star veins in early February, you transferred her luck with the system props, and the Dongfang family infinity with the amount of resource blessing, it took a month for the star to be formed. The props will always be invalid. Now her luck is restored to the original, and she will soon hit the Tianchi star again. Once she opens a star vein, your advantage there is nothing left." Dongfang Li was silent. After a while, he reluctantly responded in his mind, "I know, I will work hard." It seemed that the beating of the system had worked, and Dongfang Li stopped looking around, instead meditating seriously. Dongfang Li calmed down, but Mu Yoongi couldn't calm down. Mu Yoongi seemed to be meditating, but in fact, there was a storm in his heart. In the first month, she did faintly sense the position of the Tianchi star, for which she prepared for a long time, and formally attacked the star veins, but failed. Mu Yoongi suffered internal injuries and was depressed for a long time. She couldn't understand why everything went well, why she failed at the last minute. Now, Mu Yoongi finally knew. It turned out that it was the ghost of Dongfang Li again. The time details mentioned by the system are all right, Mu Yoongi is daring to be sure, this is true. Mu Yoongi didn't know why she suddenly heard the dialogue between the system and Dongfang Li. She didn't always hear it. During the theory class in the morning, she didn't hear any sound. Mu Yoongi secretly compared the situation when she heard the system sound. The first time she fell into the sea, and the second time is now, Dongfang Li and the system conspired to plunder her luck. Both times seemed to be related to her, and it hurt very much. There were too few samples, Mu Yoongi couldn't figure out the rules, and could only shelve the matter temporarily. In contrast, she cares more about her cultivation. According to the original situation, Nguyen Gihui opened up the star veins in early February and became the first person in the school to rise to stars. It's a pity that Dongfang Li stole the chance, and Mu Yun failed to return to the star. Instead, Nangang Xian came to the top and became the first person in the new generation. Immediately afterwards, Dongfang Li successfully upgraded with the accumulation of system cheating props and Dongfang Jia's countless resources, and became a commendable couple with Nangang Xuan. Mu Yoongi's heart is full of anger. Dongfang Li has caused her to fail to get through the star vein, and almost killed her in the deep sea. This hatred is not shared. Mu Yoongi must get it back, but not now. The most important thing for this is to improve the cultivation level as soon as possible and get through the Tianjia star vessel. Only with increased strength can we be qualified to talk about justice. The tour training class is over, and Dongfang's private flying boat has stopped outside the school. Dongfang Li was going to visit Nangongxian, and a group of people gathered around him. When he went out, Dongfang Li deliberately asked, "Sister Pastor, we are going to visit the sick brother's house, are you going?" Mu Yongyi shook his head, "There is a Dongfang junior sister, so I shouldn't be able to use me. I won't go." Dongfang Li was both proud and satisfied, and walked away surrounded by many attendants. They hula la la and left a group of people. Mu Yongyi didn't want to run into those people, so he slowly packed his things and waited for everyone to go before following behind. On the top of the mountain, a delicate pavilion is hidden among the trees. A man in blue quickly climbed up the steps, stopped at the screen, and respectfully bowed his hand. "Patriarch, the hairpin of Mu Ji has been released." Behind the elegant screen of the four gentlemen, a man in brocade clothed his hands behind his back, watching the boys and girls scattered like clouds at the foot of the mountain, and slowly responded. After the man in blue reported, he should have retired immediately. He saluted again, took a half step back, and stopped. His eyes were half drooping, and he boldly asked, "Patriarch, this move, will it be too risky? There are special boats to and from Dongfang Li, but Muyun has to take a public flying boat when he returns." She lived far away, and there were fewer and fewer people on the flying boat, and in the end she was the only one left. Within 2 days of Mu Yun's return, she heard of the major blows one after another. She sat by the window and looked at the sea under her feet, which was quite low. The eyes are always unchanging blue. After a long time of boredom, a lush and quiet hillside gradually appeared in his sight. Mu Yongyi saw it, and his emotions slowly rose. Yes, she is not alone. There is still someone in the family who needs her. How can she be depressed? The flying boat arrived at the station and moored on the shore. Mu Yun returned and ran down the stairs, hurriedly over the mountains and plains of flowers, and ran up the hillside. Tianju Island is ring-shaped and looks like a silver hook from a distance. There are 4 families in the east, south, west, and north. There is a strait in the southwest, which is connected to the sea outside, and Muyun is home in the strait. On the other side, the position of the silver hook handle. The enchantment around the island is built around the outer edge of Tianju Island. Theoretically it can protect the strait, but in reality, the ocean is vast, and the underwater world is simply unavoidable. From time to time, the inner sea would swim in the beasts. Fortunately, there are 2 layers of enchantment and strait filtering, and all those who swim in are small sea beasts. Firstly, the barrier is indeed unstoppable, and the cost of enhancing the barrier is too great. Secondly, the young people on the island also need to sharpen, and the elders acquiesced to this funnel. However, the hook handle on the southwest of Tianju Island is far and remote, bordering the open sea on 3 sides, and the barrier is very weak. It is undoubtedly the most dangerous place on the island. No one wants to live here. So when Mu Yongyi's mother, Mu Ji, proposed to settle here, the elders smoothly agreed. Their family only occupies a small hillside, but basically, the actual right to use the entire peninsula belongs to Mu Yongyi. Fortunately, Tianju Island is in a ring shape. Flying boats and boats move around the inland sea every day. Even if Mu Yongyi lives far away, he can take transportation. It's just that there are few boats arriving at this pier, and Mu Yongyi must calculate the boat time every time he goes to school or goes to sea. The Mu's house is located on a hillside with grassland and coast in front, lush forests behind, and endless sea in the distance. The scenery is excellent. It is now in March, the sun is shining, the blue sky and the coast are full of wild flowers on the hillside, and the girl in white wears her clothes and walks through the flowers, beautiful like a picture scroll. A simple and quaint wooden courtyard was located in the front. Before it got close, Mu Yungi's voice came, "I'm back." Zhang Shaokai sat in the pavilion on the second floor and flipped through the book. Hearing the sound, he looked back at the time and raised his eyebrows in surprise. When it is not time to apply, she will be back. After 10,000 years, education would be too sloppy. When Mu Yun returned to Chen Chen, he went out and returned after Shen Shi. Excluding the time on the road, he spent 3 hours in the school. The starting point was originally low, and they only had to study for half a day. Zhang Shaokai put down the book, feeling that the future of the cultivation world no longer needs to look forward to. The yard where Mu Yun returned home is very simple. The front is a three room main room with attic. The middle hall and the east room are connected and used as a living room. The west room is Mu Jia's bedroom. There is a staircase leading directly to the second-story attic. Mu Jia put a lot of bookshelves in the attic, which were both a study room and a storage room. There is a Torim wing house on the east side of the main house, which is Mu Yungi's residence. To the west of the main house is a separate cabin, which should be a kitchen, and there is a pavilion in the southwest corner, which is probably a place for cool summer nights. The yard was surrounded by trees on 3 sides, and Lin Haidao sounded as soon as the window opened. In front of Mu Yungi's room, a pink flower tree was planted. The house is simple, but the layout inside is comfortable and tidy, with warmth everywhere. Zhang Shaokai now lives in Mujia's house. There is no portrait of Mujia in the house, but Zhang Shaokai guessed that this should be a knowledgeable, gentle, and beautiful mother. Because Mu Jia kept neatly in the attic all the books and toys of Mu Yungi's childhood, including the wooden sword from when he was a child. It's no wonder that Mu Yun can be cultivated into a silly white sweet when she returns to an island where material is scarce. It can be seen that she should have grown up in a loving environment. Zhang Shaokai sighed inwardly, not knowing whether he was envious or emotional. He put down his book and walked down from the attic. Thanks to the blessing of a gentle and careful mother of Mu Yungi, Zhang Shaokai easily found all the textbooks since Mu Yungi grew up in the attic. After Mu Yun returned, Zhang Shaokai sat in the attic, learning about the world bit by bit from the most elementary textbooks. Only then did he know that her last name was the word Mu. As a result, before he finished watching, Mu Yungi returned. Zhang Shaokai walked into the living room, just as Mu Yun returned to open the door. Mu Yungi opened the courtyard door, separated the half-open window, and saw Zhang Shaokai skillfully call up the gossip plate in the room, and took out the box from the frost box to eat. He was a little confused for a while. He seemed to have a little knowledge of these things last night. In just half a day, did he even use the frost box? Mu Yungi put his pen and ink back into his room, and through the window, he curiously asked Zhang Shaokai, "How do you know there is food in the frost box?" Zhang Shaokai dug a spoon of dessert, and slowly put it in his mouth. "Is it difficult?" Mu Yungi was in a state of infarction and had nothing to say. She smiled and said with satisfaction, "Sure enough, sunbathing is good. As you think of it, I was worried about your own danger at home when I was in class today." Zhang Shaokai snorted softly, "Is he in danger?" In contrast, it is more practical that Mu Yungi is worried that his family is in danger. In a few words, Zhang Shaokai finished the dessert. He put down the silver spoon unconsciously, thinking that this era is useless, but the food is doing well. After Mu Yungi sorted out the books, she ran to the kitchen to fetch water. She lives by herself, and she has to do everything by herself. Zhang Shaokai looked for a while and asked, "You are on the island, how do you get drinking water?" Yesterday the puppet mentioned that Tianzhu Island has red rice grown by itself, and there are other crops to come. Food can be self-sufficient, but what about water? Mu Yun returned to the kitchen, raised her voice and talked with Zhang Shaokai. Tianzhu Island has a water purification formation, which is said to have been given by a ferry. When the road was not cut off before, when the ferry came to Tianzhu Island, they would by the way, check the barriers and formations on the island, and sometimes bring some new magic objects. Unfortunately, Tianju Island has been forgotten since 1,000 years ago. No ferry has been here in these years. The formation on the island the Fa has not been changed for 1,000 years. Zhang Shaokai knew that most of the ferries mentioned by Tianju Icelanders were his old acquaintance disciples or younger generations. They sealed him on an isolated island, and for fear or other reasons, they would come to Tianju Island to check it every once in a while. In order to control the jailers on the island, they called themselves Immortals outside the world, and kept fooling the Icelanders in the name of blessings, until they were brainwashed into fanatic believers. The so-called Immortals check formations and barriers are not for the benefit of the Icelanders, but for fear that Zhang Shaokai will break the seal. For this reason, they naturally have to spare no effort to protect Tianju Island and provide it with clean water, food, technology, and money, just to allow the Icelanders to guard the seal year after year and maintain the formation. This makes sense. Zhang Shaokai was strange yesterday. Looking at the situation of this island, it is not like a place where you can study advanced technologies such as talking puppets. It turned out that these were not developed by the Icelanders, but a wave of new warlocks emerged in the distant fairyland continent, constantly improving various kinds of miscellaneous arts, and later passed the finished products to Tianju Island through the hands of the guards. People on Tianju Island can only use it, but don't know why. Zhang Shaokai asked, "Do you have a formation class in your school?" "No." Mu Yongyi's voice came from the kitchen, vaguely. "The formation has been cut off a long time ago, and only Immortals know how to set up the formation." Zhang Shaokai chuckled, and sure enough, his guess was correct. Looking at the huge enchantment on the island, the boats that are not stopping day and night, you can foresee that the formation is not cut off at all, but is changing with each passing day. It's just that those people don't want the Icelanders to learn it. It's no wonder that Mu Yun only needs half a day of class a day, because they don't need life and ideals. As long as they can live in the mouth of sea beasts, it is enough to conscientiously maintain the operation of the suppression formation on the island. It's just a jailer and a maintenance worker, how much brains can it take? But 1,000 years ago, I didn't know what went wrong, and those people stopped coming to prison to check the prisoners. Why? If Zhang Shaokai has lost its value, just kill it. Why bother to continue for another 1,000 years? Did they have other arrangements, or did they say something happened on the immortal world continent, they couldn't take care of themselves and couldn't take care of the island? Zhang Shaokai leaned back, leaned his head on the back of the chair, and closed his eyes to think about things. No matter what happened in the mainland, his top priority was to quickly restore his strength. Today, when Mu Yun is gone, Zhang Shaokai can finally take a good check on his body. He regarded himself the meridian Danshan and found that the situation was worse than he expected. The sword bone was excavated, and the sea of consciousness was severely damaged, but all of these could be solved by finding a way. The really serious thing was that his star vein was drawn. Zhang Shaokai never felt that he was special. Entering the star vessel was just to help him gather spiritual energy faster, but in the eyes of those people, it became a sin. The meridians are the most delicate, and ordinary cultivators who accidentally bump into the meridians may become devilish, but Zhang Shaokai's star meridian is extracted by life. The flesh and blood in his body was severely damaged as a result. Not only his cultivation was completely destroyed, but even his spiritual power could not be accommodated. This is the most deadly point. He couldn't keep the spiritual energy in his body, so he couldn't cultivate, and when his cultivation base was low, he couldn't find something to repair the sea of consciousness and sword bone, which became an endless loop. Zhang Shaokai closed his eyelashes cast a fine shadow under his eyelids, as if he was asleep quietly. He leaned for a while, and decided to heal the dark wounds in his body first, and the spiritual matter would be solved slowly in the future. Although he has no cultivation base now, the strength of the body once nourished by spiritual energy will not return. As long as Zhang Shaokai repairs his internal injuries, his body is the best magic weapon, and few monsters in the world can hurt him. Otherwise, Huan Zaiwen would not have dug his sword bones. Mu Yunyi took care of the housework, ran out quickly, and briskly said, "Let you wait a long time, I just prepared the meal, I have set the time, I can eat it when I come back. Now let's take care of your affairs." Var. Zhang Shaikai opened his eyes and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Me? Why didn't he know he had something? Your identity token. Mu Yunyi said, "It's hard to move on the island without an identity token. You can't always stay at home, and you will inevitably have to go out alone in the future. Let's get an identity token first, by the way. I will show you the way on the island." Zhang Shaikai changed his thoughts. Before he found the way out, he had to live on Tianzhu Island. It would not last long if there was one more person on the island, and he always had to cross the clear road. So Zhang Shaikai did not object, and acquiesced in the arrangement of Mu Yun's return. Mu Yunyi took Zhang Shaikai on board and went to the consulate hall of Qixian Island. There are 4 big families on Tianzhu Island. Except for the alliance between Nangang and Dongfang family, the other families are not convinced. All affairs related to Tianzhu Island are located on the central Qixian Island, or else they fall into the territory of which family. No one else would accept it. This is also convenient for Mu Yun to return. Mu Yunyi took Zhang Shaikai and stood in the consulate hall and said, "I fell off the coast yesterday and accidentally found him on a reef. He was washed over by the waves. He had lost his memory when I found him. I only remember who my last name and last name are, and I don't know if I ask 3 questions. He is just a mortal with no trace of cultivation. I saw him pitifully, so I left him." The people in the consulate hall showed suspicion, and looked up and down Zhang Shaikai. "Really? If it's just a mortal, how can you live to Tianzhu Island?" Mu Yunyi turned slightly to his side, blocking Zhang Shaikai, and said patiently, "There are many undercurrents outside Tianzhu Island, and it may be connected to which sea area. Didn't my mother land on the island like this back then?" The eyes of the people in the consulate hall were still very bad. Zhang Shaikai narrowed his eyes gradually becoming dangerous. Mu Yunyi used his posture to cover Zhang Shaikai's hand and secretly used force to remind him not to act rashly. The people in the consulate hall finally took a step back and said in a condescending manner, "Okay, but only temporary tokens can be made. Whoever is the last name and name, family background, please report it." Zhang Shaikai looked at the arrogant clerk, his eyes dark and deep. Upon seeing this, Mu Yunyi hurriedly said, "He is Zhang Shaikai. He accidentally hit the reef when he landed ashore, and he was not very conscious." Mu Yunyi quietly explained Zhang Shaikai's non-cooperation as a bad brain, and they couldn't be honest with a patient with a brain problem. The person in the consulate hall wrote down the name and asked, "Age?" This Mu Yunyi didn't know. She looked at Zhang Shaikai and reminded softly, "Your age?" Zhang Shaikai moved his eyes and stopped for a long time. Mu Yunyi stared at him eagerly. Even the people in the consulate hall looked up and looked at Zhang Shaikai strangely. Mu Yunyi was embarrassed and asked euphemistically, "Do I need to think about it for so long?" It's not that Zhang Shaikai is not cooperating, but that he is hesitating. Is his 10,000 years of sleep counted in his age? He considered it for a long time, and felt that he had no impression of the days. How can he be counted as passing by? So, Zhang Shaikai calmly said, 20. The consulate staff did not respond to this number, and said coldly, "Birthday. October 30. The people in the consulate hall didn't look up, and said indifferently, "Oh, 19. That's all, it's done, go to the doorway to wait, and after half a stick of incense, press the number to get the token." After speaking, the people in the consulate hall didn't wait for Mu Yun to return, so they walked away with a cold face. Mu Yunyi's thank you was in her mouth, and she sighed helplessly, then turned back and said to Zhang Shaikai, "They are like this. Let's go, let's get the token." After a quarter of an hour, the consulate hall automatically spit out the new token. The token is a status symbol on Tianzhu Island. Like people from the 4 major families, each family has a different color, and there are different shades within the family according to the pros and cons of blood. And Mu Yunyi is an outsider, homeless and familyless, and it is the color of Xian Tai itself. Zhang Shaosai is even more miserable. He is not even an official islander, only a bronze medal. The most important thing has been done. Mu Yunyi transferred a part of his points to Zhang Shaokai on the self-help array, and then walked out of the hall with him and took the boat home. Today they changed their flying boats, and their comfort and speed are far better than boats. Mu Yun returned home far away on the edge of Tianzhu Island, and soon there were only 2 of them on the flying boat. Zhang Shaokai held the bronze medal in his hand and checked it over and over again. His fingers are long and slender, and they are particularly beautiful on the hard metal. There are only puppets on the flying boat, no one in charge, and it is safer than the outside world. Zhang Shaokai asked, "How are points calculated?" Mu Yunyi stretched out his hand, pointed at the faintly visible figures on both sides of the inland sea, and said, "Patrol enchantments, catch sea beasts, and grow rice can all be exchanged for points. Similarly, points are also deducted for buying ferry tickets, food, and weapons. Who does this income go to? It belongs to the corresponding family. For example, the shipping is jointly operated by the Dongfang family and the Nangang family. The Baiguo family has the largest farmland and pasture, and the Ximen family is good at making weapons. The 4 major families share enchantment patrols and praying for the gods. Participate." Zhang Shaokai nodded. He read Mu Yunyi's enlightenment textbook today, and he no longer asks the question, "What should I do if I lose the points in the token?" Zhang Shaosai leaned his arm around the back of the chair. He watched for a while and suddenly asked, "How can the barrier be maintained? Such a large enchantment around the island would probably consume a lot of energy every day." Mu Yunyi also looked out following Zhang Shaokai's sight, and said quietly, "The enchantment is supplied by spirit stones and is maintained by the 4 major families every day." Zhang Shaokai raised his eyebrows. "So there are spirit stones on the island. They hold the spirit stones in their hands, but let you use points?" Mu Yunyi nodded. "The spiritual energy is limited, and the spiritual stone has long become a rare treasure. I heard that before the punishment comes, people outside will use the spiritual stone to settle the settlement. The spiritual stone is generally like a stone on the roadside. I don't know if it is true." "Of." Zhang Shao nodded, and replied in a low voice, "Really?" Mu Yun turned back and looked at him in surprise. "How do you know what happened before the punishment?" Zhang Shaokai leaned on the seat without blinking his eyes, and said casually, "I guessed it." Mu Yunyi breathed a sigh of relief, and couldn't help but glared at him angrily. "If you don't know, don't talk nonsense, and startle me." Zhang Shaokai changed a comfortable posture, leaning on his slender legs at will, looking at the sparkling silver sea below, and said, "It is much more convenient to replace spirit stones with points, but in this way, money will completely lose practical value. The people on the island have been supporting an illusory symbol throughout their lives, and the value of this symbol is entirely up to the person who makes the rules." "Yes." Mu Yunyi tried his best to look north, where there was a large flat land where many people stood there, planting, weeding, and harvesting with their heads down day after day. They worked hard for a whole year and could only earn a tiny bit of points. Then, they used these points in exchange for just enough food for a year. They seem to have been struggling hard all their lives, but when they finally settled, they would find that they hadn't saved anything. Mu Yunyi sighed, "But, what can I do?" The 2 looked at the sea quietly. After a while, Zhang Shaokai's voice rang out in a low voice, "The fairies in your mouth have not been on the island for 1,000 years. The spirit stones on the island should be left by them. When the spirit stones are used up, what will you do?" Under the flying boat, a giant marine fish leaped up, but only bit the shadow of the flying boat. Mu Yunyi looked down at all this, for a long time, sighed, I don't know either. Nangong home. The old servant sent the young masters and ladies who came to visit the sick to leave. Nangong Xian was the concubine of the patriarch of Nangong. His biological mother died when she gave birth to him. For many years, Nangong Xian was not valued, and there was only one old servant around him. Now Nangong Xuan has become the first person in the new generation to open up the star vein of Tianchu, and his status has risen sharply, but Nangong Xuan is suspicious and does not keep more people around. Therefore, now Nangong Xuan is ill, and the only one who is guarding him is an old and weak loyal servant. The group of young masters made a lot of noise, and the house was noisy for a long time. Nangong Xuan was lying on the hospital bed alone, frowning tightly, and suddenly he convulsed violently, and suddenly opened his eyes. Nangong Xuan stared at the simple house for a long time before recognizing that this was his residence in Nangong's home on Tianju Island many years ago. Nangong Xianchong breathed a sigh of relief, and after death, Jin Chan escaped his shell, and he finally succeeded. His body was still dizzy and feverish, and Nangong Xian knew that this was a sequelae of the retrospective forbidden technique. He leaned on the bedpost, stared at his hand, and fell into a long silence. He didn't understand, he clearly opened up the Kixing Yao's light veins, and was alone in the world. The harem was like a cloud, and he was the king and hegemony. Everything was thriving and the situation was very good. Finally, why did he end up in that scene? He was originally just an unfavored on a small island. His biological mother died young and his father didn't like him. He lived in Nangong's house like a dog since he was a child. When he was 20 years old, his fiancée hit the door to break off the marriage. He humiliatedly accepted the compensation from the Dongfang family and tore up the marriage certificate. Behind Dongfang Li's suitor laughed at him as the toad wanted to eat swan meat. The string in Nangong Xuan's heart was stretched to the extreme. He led the two to a secluded sea and killed them by the mouth of sea beasts. But during the fight, Nangong Xian also fell off the cliff and was caught in the turbulence. When he woke up, he found that he was in a karst cave. There was no spiritual energy in the karst cave. Nangong Xian was cautious and didn't go deep. He just dried his clothes at the entrance of the cave and came out. While drying the clothes, he was sitting in a quiet place and accidentally found a jade pendant. The silk ribbon on the jade pendant has been weathered into powder, but the jade is crystal clear and the streamer is restrained. Nangong Xuan felt that this jade was not a mortal thing, so he wore it on her body. Later he returned to the island, pretending that nothing had happened. 2 people were missing from the Dongfang family, and the other party checked it for a long time, but they still couldn't get rid of it. Later, cultivators from outside came and brought them into the Immortal Realm continent. There, Nangong Xuanke really began his counterattack life. He joined the Swordsman Promise faction, accepted the task of the division, and went to Yinchange to explore. Yinchange used to be a great city for cultivating immortals, but unfortunately the whole continent was submerged, and Yinchange sank under the sea, completely becoming a city of death. Yinchange was in danger, and even Mu Yongyi died in this mission. Nangong Xian thought that he was going to die too, but at a critical moment, he felt the guidance of the jade pendant and survived in a thrilling manner, and found a great opportunity in the ruins. 9-section Nirvana sword bone, and a Lingxiu sword art. After seeing these 2 things, Nangong Xian finally understood why the immortal world was short of manpower, and the Promise faction still sent a large number of elite disciples to Yinchange for exploration year after year. When the heavenly punishment broke out, various places were shocked. Yin City suddenly sank to the bottom of the sea along with the entire continent, many elder disciples were killed, and the 2 treasures of the Huan family were buried under the sea. For many years, the head of the Promise faction has been trying to find it back, but it is a pity that the disciples have died one after another, and no one has found the sword bone and sword art. Nangong Xuan got it, but when he was quiet, he didn't say anything, let alone tell the boss. He spent a great deal of effort to finally integrate the 9-section sword bone into his body. Since then, his cultivation base has been thousands of miles away, and he is even more invincible in the same level when he practiced with the matching Lingsu sword art. With Jianbone and Lingsu sword art, later Nangongxian found some magic weapons by chance, and the road of cultivation was as smooth as if he had suddenly cleared the key. His cultivation level is getting higher and higher, and the information he can access is more and more. Only then did he know that it turned out that all the opportunities he got had the same person's name behind him. Zhang Ziyu, the genius of Tianzong who was slain for betrayal 10,000 years ago. Zhang Ziyu represents the most splendid and glorious era in the world of cultivating immortals. After he fell, the path of immortality declined rapidly. 2,000 years after Zhang Ziyu's death, his aura became scarce, but no one took it seriously. The aura is naturally raised, and it has been filled in the mountains and forests since the birth of the heaven and the earth, just as there will be many years of farming, and the aura is also the same, and it will always regenerate. However, the aura did not regenerate, on the contrary, after another 2,000 years, the aura suddenly dried up, and replaced by the demonic energy. Devilish energy broke out in Kunlun Zone, the holy land of immortality, and quickly spread to various places. The monks all over the world were involved in catastrophe without any protection. Since then, the era of the end of the law of darkness has begun. But these Nangongsuan didn't care. He practiced smoothly, with unique swordsmanship, and there are many magical opportunities for him. What does the catastrophe of mankind have to do with him? After many more years, Nangongxian opened up the 7 stars and became the only person who had come into contact with the Yaoguang realm since Zhang Ziyu. No, his achievements even surpassed Zhang Ziyu. Zhang Ziyu was only 19 years old when he cultivated to 6 stars. Everyone said that if given him a maximum of 10 years, Zhang Ziyu would surely become the first 7 star cultivator on the mainland. But Zhang Ziyu didn't do anything. He was condemned to the Tumotai, and the brightest star in the history of the cultivating world fell. But Nangongxian succeeded. He was energetic and thought rather disapprovingly that he might not be better when he was young. The so-called genius is nothing more than that. In terms of chance and strength, Zhang Ziyu is no match for Nangongxian. Without Zhang Ziyu's sword tactics, mental skills, and magic weapons, Nangongxian could also become the pinnacle of the mainland. Nangongxian was full of ambition. He founded his own empire. When he was about to scold Fang Yao and give pointers to the country, his cultivation fell into a bottleneck. When Zhang Ziyu died at 19, the sword arts and exercises he left behind were only in the Qiang realm. Nangongxian can no longer make profit, the outside world is not calm at this time, the devilish energy is getting stronger and stronger, and the human beings are losing ground in the confrontation with the monsters. In the end, the disaster spread to Nangongxian, and his king fell in the beast tide. There is not much aura left, and Nangongsuan and his harem beauty are still squandering, and the hearts of the people have long been distracted. After the royal capital was broken, Nangongsuan wanted to gather people to make a comeback, but no one followed him at all. The empire he was proud of collapsed like this. If the skin does not exist, the hair will be attached. People are gone, where did the emperor come from? Nangongsuan had no choice but to give up the great cause of his family and country. He thought that if he was poor, he would be good for himself, and that he would benefit the world. In the end times, it is important to protect his family first and save the world. He fled with many harems. He thought that these women would be grateful to him, but he did not expect that he would be deceived, betrayed, and abandoned all the way. When he was brilliant, countless beauties followed him anonymously, jealous for him, fighting openly and secretly. Once he could not provide them with jewelry and costumes, they immediately abandoned him. When he was seriously injured, the eldest wife he trusted the most and had been with him for the longest time gave him a knife from behind, sucking away all his skills. Nangongxian also learned at this time that he was not the only person in the immortal continent who had opened up the 7 stars in these years. Nangongxian could rely on Zhang Ziu's left-hand skills to practice Qiang, Zhang Ziyi, who was assigned to Zhang Ziu's former fellow and friend. If you have more wealth, you can naturally reach 6 stars. But further up, they are in trouble. They, none of them got through the real 7-star meridians. They are just the Sudoyeo light realm. Poor Nangongsuan trusts his elder wife so much. He once confidently believed that no matter what happened, his virtuous and gentle elder wife would not betray him. As a result, reality gave him a slap in the face. The eldest wife has not only absorbed the skill, but even wanted to deprive Nangongxian of other opportunities. A generation of powerful men, but now they have become mice to be slaughtered. At that time, Nangongsuan thought of Mu Yunyi. If Mu Yun returned, she would never be like this. If Mu Yun returned too. Nangongxian exhausted his whole body's energy and blood, activated the secret technique, looking back in time. 100-legged insects die but not stiff. After all, Nangongsuan has collected so many treasures, how could there be no life-saving cards in his body? This is his final whole card. He wants to go back to his youth with memories, and walk the longevity road again. The old servant finally took care of the young masters and elders. He staggered back into the house and found that Nangongsuan had woken up, leaning on the bedpost in a daze. The old servant was astonished for a moment, and something in his hand fell to the ground. 3 young masters, are you awake? Is there anything else uncomfortable with your body? I'm going to invite Miss Dongfang and the doctor to come back. Nangongsuan frowned and immediately stopped the old servant. No, I am in good health, and I will be fine after a short rest. There was nothing wrong with Nangongsuan. The reason why he had a fever was just because this body was too low in cultivation and his roots were too bad, and he couldn't bear the retrospective technique. Now his soul is awake, and it is no problem. The old servant heard that Nangongsuan was okay, tears were running, and he tremblingly wiped the corners of his eyes with the back of his eyes. It's fine if you wake up. 3rd young master, your sickness is so fierce that you really scared the old slave to death. Fortunately, Dongfang University. The young lady sent a doctor and also sent a lot of medicinal materials. Otherwise, the old slave really doesn't know what to do. Nangongxian's brows were tucked, and he vaguely felt that something was beyond his control. Miss Dongfang, you said it was Dongfang Li. Exactly. Watching Nangongsuan grow up, the old servant had already regarded Nangongsuan as his own child. At this moment, he was really happy for Nangongxian, the 3rd young master. The eldest lady is so kind to you. Yesterday you suddenly fainted, Miss Dongfang Li sent you back, and today he brought many fellow students to visit you. The eldest lady is from a noble background, and she is right. Your love is deep, and after you get married, you must live a good life. The more Nangongxian listened, the more confused he became. Is the old servant really Dongfang Li? Dongfang Liming retired arrogantly, watching him being humiliated coldly, and afterwards instructed his suitors to trouble him, almost killing Nangongxian. Why has her attitude changed suddenly in this life? Nangongsuan's first reaction was that Dongfang Li also used time to retrospect the forbidden technique, but he immediately rejected himself. This high-level forbidden technique requires a lot of spiritual energy, and it is difficult to activate with Dongfang Li's cultivation base. Nangongsuan couldn't figure it out, so he put aside for the time being, and instead asked about another person he really cared about. Just thinking of her name, Nangongsuan's voice trembled slightly. Where is Mu Yun? The old servant was quite surprised when he heard Nangongxian's question about Mu Yun's return. The noble and domineering fiancé loves you alone. Which teenager can resist this temptation? These days, the 3 young masters were clearly fighting with Miss Dongfang. Why did he suddenly mention that orphan after he fell ill? The old servant said, Mu Yun returned to the sea yesterday, but today I heard that he has been found. Now, he is probably at home. Lohei. Nangongsuan frowned. Mu Yunyi had always been cautious. If she hadn't saved him in her previous life, she would never have died young. Why would she fall into the sea in this life? Nangongxian quickly asked, why did she fall into the sea? The old servant shook his head, I don't know. Maybe it's accidentally, I went out to catch the sea beasts, how can I be lucky again and again? The more Nangongxian listened, the more things were wrong. He asked repeatedly and learned that the sea area where Mu Yongyi fell was the place where he originally killed Dongfang Li's 2 dog legs. It was there that Nangongsuan was caught in the undercurrent and picked up the jade pendant. Nangongxian's eyebrows are drawn together into the word Chuan. What's going on? Why are there so many things that are different from the previous life? Nangongsuan couldn't figure it out and stopped thinking about it. He supported the bed and stood up laboriously. Where is she? I'm going to see her. The old servant was startled, and hurriedly stopped Nangongxian. Don't be the third young master, you are not in good health, you can't stand the toss. But Nangongsuan insisted, and the old servant found that the third young master slept. His mood changed drastically, and he became more gloomy than before when he didn't speak. The old servant didn't dare to persuade him, so he could only find him clothes and side him out. As soon as Nangongxian left the Nangong mansion, he hurried to Mu Yun's home. His current cultivation base is too low to fly in the air, so he can only take tools. The closer to that direction, the faster Nangongsuan's heartbeat. Nangongsuan laughed himself, he had so many women, and now he is as nervous as a hairy boy. How many years has he not seen Mu Yun return? Young people don't know how to feel sad, but at that time the only way is common. After he lost it, he realized what kind of treasure he had missed. Fortunately, she is still in this life, and everything is too late. Standing at the door of Mu's house, Nangongsuan took a deep breath and knocked on the door. He waited with bated breath, and even secretly adjusted his clothes, but he waited for a long time and did not hear footsteps. Nangongxian raised her eyebrows, what's the matter, isn't she at home? She is most concerned about her schoolwork. At this point in time, she should review her homework at home. Nangongsuan was hovering at the door. Just as he was determined to break in, a soft and familiar voice sounded behind him, Nangongsuan. Nangongsuan was overjoyed when he heard this voice, and immediately turned his head, but when he saw the situation behind, his smile instantly froze. The wind crossed the sky and over the coast, blowing the grass over and over. The girl was dressed in white, standing in the sun as if shining brightly, and beside her, stood a young man in mysterious clothes. The young man has tall legs, a sword-like figure, and beautiful and flamboyant eyebrows. The two stood side by side among the mountain flowers, both bright and beautiful. Especially Nangongsuan also recognized that the clothes on this boy were exactly the 20-year-old birthday gift given to him by Mu Yongyi. Nangongsuan's face suddenly became gloomy. Zhang Shaosai looked around, raised his eyebrows, and asked with a smile, do you know each other?